Come on. There we go. All
We're
right.
live.
We are live. How about that, Kate? How about that?
We are live. It's been a minute, Kevin.
Long time no see, long time no podcast, that's for sure.
I know. Last time I saw you was at a show at WrestlePro, and I can't remember the last time I was on the podcast. I think it was for when we did Down the Aisle.
Probably. Was it WrestlePro the last time I saw you, or was it like a major show?
I think it was WrestlePro.
It was WrestlePro?
Oh yeah. I think it was WrestlePro.
Okay. Oh, so they're September 17th. They're coming back. Your boys, the Acclaimed.
I know. I go to WrestlePro when I can, when I'm not doing commentary, and I can't go when they run Fridays because I've got post-show duties those days. Right. But whenever it's on the weekends, I like to come by, say hi.
This will be a Sunday afternoon gimmick.
Yeah, so, I like a good Sunday afternoon wrestling.
Little 5 p.m. Thing, but we will get all into your commentary, your weekend.
Oh man!
Once we go live, that didn't sound promising at all.
Oh, I live a weird little life, Kevin. That's all.
And we'll get into all of that in just a little bit. So for those just joining us now in the soft open, because why wouldn't you? Because we literally just started. So of course you're just joining us. No Tony, no Matt, no HK. This is a Shining Wizards presents KJG and KTG show.
That's right.
So this is unsanctioned.
It's an unsanctioned show.
It's an unsanctioned podcast.
Yeah.
There are no rules binding us or bounding us.
That's it.
We will talk about what we want, how we want to talk about it, when we want to talk about it, and in whatever order we want to talk about it.
It's like your parents are gone.
Yeah, basically. Sneaking. This is the sneaking into the liquor cabinet of podcasts.
There it is.
That's what this is. And then you come at like George Costanza only has prune juice. Hopefully we're a little better than the prune juice of podcasts.
I would hope. I don't think that's like the most marketable thing. Like I don't think we should be making prune juice podcasting or anything. That would be horrendous.
I mean, one podcast with dried fruits. Because don't you do a sour grapes?
I do a sour grapes.
Oh, sour grapes. That's
you gotta stick the landing with the pun, but yeah, that's a fun one. That whole show is like, I can't even call it a post show. It's like a variety hour now. It's gotten so off the rails in the most delightful way, but
love it.
That's the only fruit podcast that I have.
So fair warning to everyone. Like I said, this is unsanctioned. No Matt, no Tony, no soundboard, no HK, no producer, and fourth wizard. So like I said, this is KJG and KTG. So it could be choppy in parts. So in parts. So just for fair warning, disclaimer. KJG is doing the banners, the slides, the music, all this and the that's is. So just a disclaimer, real quick. So
you're basically Anthony Bowens tonight. You didn't. You're basically Anthony Bowens. You're a 5-tool player today.
That's right. Basically,
that's all it is. Yeah, you don't need.
But I can't cut promos like Bowens though.
Nobody can. I
can't cry on the spot like Bowens. Like I can cry on the spot if someone gets married on 90210, I can cry. But
if somebody gets married, okay, not talking about wrestling. At what 90210 wedding did you cry?
What was it? I don't. Did anyone ever get married on 90210 except for like the finale?
I don't know. To be honest, like 90210 was not my jam. I was I feel like I was just young for it. Like I was Saved by the Bell, Full House. I feel like my sister was like 90210 age.
Okay, so how about this? How about a Saved by the Bell? I can cry when Kelly breaks up with Zach all day.
Oh God, who can't?
Yeah, exactly. But I can't like Bowens can cry when Billy Gunn retires. That's impressive. I know. That's impressive.
It's true. And I was like, yay. How get these old guys off my screen? I don't have any attachment to this era. Like
don't let the door hit you in your daddy ass on the way out.
That's right. That's right. No, I can't. He's been used pretty well. He's definitely not my biggest complaint about like old timers coming around in wrestling. I gotta say, like,
that should be a top. That should be a top 5 in the future amongst itself.
There you go.
Top 5 overstayed their welcome pro wrestlers. I already know who your number 1 is, so I don't even slap nuts.
Well, we'll talk about more matches that feel like the same match every time they're done, because that's my biggest complaint with Jarrett. But man, oh man.
Well, I can't wait to do it. Why don't? Hey, listen, it's 6:57, but I say if you get this bad boy rolling. So we're gonna talk SummerSlam. We're gonna talk AEW, Dynamite, Rampage, Collision, all 17 wrestling shows that happened this week, and that's not even including Japan. We're going to talk about a lot of news, some big news developing today that I did not see coming, but apparently has been around there in the rumor mill. Lots of stuff to talk about. And if you give me just a minute or two, it is all coming to you next on the Shining Wizards Wrestling Podcast, episode 649.
The following is a presentation of the Shining Wizards Network, broadcasting live in high-definition video and available on all podcasting and streaming platforms. Follow us on social media at
What's up, fuckers?
The following is a presentation of the Shining Wizards Network, broadcasting live in high-definition video and available on all podcasting and streaming platforms. Follow us on social media at Wizards Podcast. Check out our merchandise at merch.shiningwizards.com. Do your Amazon shopping at amazon.shiningwizards.com. And become a Patreon supporter at patreon.com/wizardspodcast. And now, it's time for the Shining Wizards.
What's up, fuckers?
Where did cheese go?
A stupid fucking question, Kevin.
Oh, shit. Yeah, Whoa!
Hey, this is Moose.
God, that was disgusting. Shining Wizards rule the world.
Oh, baby. That's a hard cut, Kate.
That was. That's how mine are, too. Whenever I have to do anything production-wise, I'm, like, terrible at
you got a hard cut on StreamYard. I don't have a fader.
I know. I can't do the slow it down gimmick either. It's just a hard out. But then we're right into the show, man. It works.
Ladies and gentlemen, you are tuned in on the Facebook, on the YouTube, on the Twitter, on all social media platforms, and of course, podcast format. It is episode 649 of the Shining Wizards Wrestling Podcast. Kate, I guess it's wrestling talk.
And I'm milking it for all it's worth, Kevin. Talk about wrestling.
All right, so this is a flush the format, unsanctioned Shining Wizards at 649. So I'm going to go first, and I'm going to go, it's your boy, KJG and
KTG.
Oh, baby.
Yeah. And
it is
Kevin.
KJG and KTG, uncensored, unsanctioned, uncooked.
That's
just
right.
like Monday Night Raw 1993. Kate, how the hell are you?
I am doing well. I am tired, but I had a really, really fun weekend. And I saw both of your boyfriends this weekend, Kevin, and it was a lot of fun. I saw Cardona and Myers. It was very weird to see them on separate days.
Yeah,
so I them, like in a, they come together.
So I went to go check out the website for Excite, and I saw like 3 different days, 3 different autograph signings: Kurt Angle, Broski, and Hawkins. I'm like, wait, Broski and Hawkins are doing 2 different days?
Yeah, I think Cardona was already booked for Sunday. But it was funny because there was a tag match that Myers was in. He was with the wonderful Dan Barry, who I just adore. But the first night ended up getting rained out too. Kurt Angle made the most of it, I guess. But what was kind of fun was it was, 7 minutes away maybe from where I grew up, like my childhood home. I used to go to this event as a kid all the time, and to go back there and get to call commentary for wrestling, which I wasn't even into growing up, but in this balloon rally, there's hot air balloons going up in the back of the ring. It's such a blast of an event. And unfortunately we couldn't get the hot spot to work internet wise, but hoping that it'll get released later because it was a really, really fun event. They did a really good job, and the weather cleared, thankfully. But I was glad I was not supposed to be on it Friday because it got rained out regardless. So ended up working out just perfectly.
Yes, and of course, like I said, KTJ, if you're not familiar with her, she is Podcast Royalty, Pro Wrestling Podcast Royalty. Give her a follow at Miss Kayfabe on Twitter. That's Miss Kate Fabe on Twitter, at Katestagrams on IG. She is a part of a podcast that's right here on our very own Shining Wizards Network, the Mark Order Podcast, every Wednesday night around 10:15-ish, or whenever they can set up after Dynamite. Of course, SmackDown ROH, Shower Grabs, post shows on Fightful and Fightful Select. And she just mentioned commentator extraordinaire for Excite Wrestling up in New York. And of course, the most important credit, dear good close personal friend of the Shining Wizards podcast.
That is the most important. That's where it all started, baby. That's how this whole weird little wackadoo journey I'm on started with all you little fellers. So thank you.
So let me ask you this. You I know we're this is the lead here, of course, not SummerSlam, not Collision, not all the news and notes is in wrestling. The lead here is clearly Cardona and Myers wrestling in
always ready. Yeah.
In a part of New York that's not one of the 5 boroughs.
Not even close.
So let me ask you this. Did Broski win his match?
He did not. So it was we had a funny little thing happen. He was going for the world title against Mike Skyros, who is not an honorable champion. And I had a lot of things to say about it on commentary. I'll tell you what. But he lost that match, turned around and challenged for the international title there, which is held by Joe Gacy, which is held by a friend of this show, LSG, and a lot of other really great wrestlers. None of the caliber of Matt Cardona anytime recently, but he immediately challenged and won the international title. So I'm hoping that means we get to see more of him at Excite, because it was a lot of fun to have him there. There was a very, very long line for him, which was really good to see. A lot of people came out to see him specifically, which is awesome. And it was a whole bunch of fun, and that was all the first night. And then Myers was there the second night, which was really cool.
Did my dear good close personal friend, bestie, if you will, Brian Myers, was he successful in his venture in Excite Wrestling this weekend?
He wasn't either, but it's all Dan Barry's fault. So there you go.
Dan Barry
Kevin, what didn't he do is the real question here. Okay.
Oh,
he ate the pin. There was actually it was a really fun match. There was a lot of cool tandem offense that Dan and Myers had, but then there was a little bit of a rift after the match between your boyfriend, your dear close personal friend Brian Myers and Dan Barry. So we'll see if that continues, if there's any more angst there. But Cade Lothbrok and Dante Drago, who I just adore that guy too. What a great wrestler and human being. He's so much fun to watch. They won there, and he's been to WrestlePro and stuff. So
nice. That's right. And Matthew Birch, Old Faithful. I feel the list of stuff Cade is doing growing more between each appearance on the show. One of the hardest workers in the podcast game right now. You ain't lying, kid.
Well, thank you. That's really kind of you. I'm one of the tiredest. I know that much.
That's a word.
That is definitely a word, and it's something that you say when you're as tired as I am. But yeah, I'm on track to do 400 shows this year. So. Oh
my God! And Asian Joe chimes in. This might be the most cordial version of the Shining Wizards podcast ever. That's what we're trying to do right here, baby. This is going to be interactive. So those in the chat, feel free to keep commenting. We will do our best to pull up your comments. Like I said, this is free form podcast. Lots of stuff going on. Lots to talk about. Kate, sticking with your commentary stuff. Is it a two-person booth, 3-person booth?
2-person booth, and the other guy in there, Mike, is fantastic. He does the play-by-play for the most part. This weekend was really weird because we were just kind of it was a balloon rally and an outdoor setup, so we were kind of just trying to have clean sight lines. Like, it was definitely an unorthodox setup from where we're normally at, so it was a little bit more even, but he just makes it so easy to come in and work around him and just add what I can, because he's just very, very reliable and makes it a dream to come in there and do this. I haven't been doing it that long, and this is the only place I've ever done it, so it's a nerve-wracking experience, but he made it really easy for me. So
was it the Was it the hometown thing that kind of linked the connection? Was it the Fightful stuff? Did this happen before Fightful? Like what? When? How did you get into this? I'm sure you may have told this before, but I have the memory of a goldfish. So
No, I don't think I actually have talked about it that much. It was mostly the hometown connection. I was actually kind of working with Mike Freeland, friend of the show, very much,
right.
and he had kind of seen some of my stuff. I wasn't at Fightful yet. I actually got hired at Fightful the week that I first started doing commentary at Excite, which I always appreciated because they invited me around before I was even at Fightful, which was cool. But Mike Freeland saw me and had some cool ideas of how he wanted to interact with independent promotions, doing like pre-shows and post-shows and making independent promotions bigger, shows out to feel like a bigger production of kind of hyping up those cards. And I always thought that was like a cool idea, and that piece of it kind of fell to the wayside, but the relationship with Excite kind of started there. And it is kind of fun to go back to my hometown once a month or so and to get to go there. I'm excited because they're doing a baseball stadium show too, and it's a AA baseball town. So looking forward to going there, where I had my first job as a ticket office gal.
I was gonna say KTG loves her baseball.
I do. Even if it's the Mets affiliate. That was always
I was just gonna ask what team it was.
It is they used to be the Binghamton Mets. They're now the Binghamton Rumble Ponies because everybody in AA has to have a weird name. But
I like that.
So Binghamton is known for, and I say known for very lightly, but the carousels being like free and accessible to the public are a part of the history there. So that's where like the Rumble Pony piece of it came in. I thought it would have been cool because it used to be the Binghamton Triplets back in the day. I think they were like one of the first Dodgers affiliates way, way, way back in the day for
the Triplets?
The Triplets for like a Triple Cities thing. But
I don't know how I feel about that.
They did like one of the fan voted contest gimmicks, and that's what happens when you do one of the fan voted contests.
What the fuck's up in the water in Binghamton? Wherever
well, it was a very Bodie McBoatface situation. You know? It was I think the Savannah Bananas really put a stake in the ground, and then everybody started naming themselves silly things. But that was actually my second job. I worked at a pizza place. And I worked at the Binghamton Mets at that time, stadium shortly after.
Did you get any swag?
I did. Any Mets swag? I think, yeah, I had some stuff. Our uniforms were horrendous. They were like these giant orange polo shirts. They were like that Mets bright orange. And I was like, you could have gone with the Navy. Like, this isn't like a fun memento to take away. But I have some stuff that's kicking around. I definitely have a foul ball that was hit into the parking lot where a player hit his own car, which I think is probably like the funniest
Get out of here.
memento that I was able to take with me. Yeah.
What are the odds of that?
Isn't that insane?
And where was it parked?
So it was when they had fireworks nights, you have to close off half the parking lot. And so when they do that, it's like all the players have their cars very close kind of to the field, and then it's employees, and then further back from that. So it was kind of in a hot zone, but like even so, to hit your own car and not somebody else's car, and you still have to clear things pretty well there. So
absolutely. And Kate, Brendan Haney wants to know, what was the funny phrase Kate said at Excite this time? I'm guessing this is a running gag here, or
this has been a running gag. I didn't have one this time, but at the Mark Order we do like we've had people vote on a funny thing to say, or we'll give a category like a sitcom catchphrase or whatever, and then I try and work it on commentary, which is really fun, and only something you can get away with on the indie scene, which is the most fun part about it. I feel like I've
literally get away with just about anything on independent commentary if done right.
Oh yeah, I've had like 22 skidoo. What else have I said on there?
Did you ever have these pretzels are making me thirsty?
I did not have that. I feel like that. Why was that kicking around? I feel like maybe that got like nominated, but I had some stuff. I didn't grow up watching The Simpsons, but everybody throws out Simpsons catchphrases, and I just don't know what they mean, but say them anyway, which is probably a very dangerous habit to be in. But the goggles, they don't do anything is something I think it was, or whatever. There were a few that were really, really
Is
fun.
that Schwarzenegger?
It was a Simpsons thing. I have no idea.
It had to have been the goggles. They do nothing. It was like it had to have been that Schwarzenegger ripoff guy. Does anyone even still watch The Simpsons?
I don't know. This is what's so weird. Like, I didn't watch The Simpsons growing up, but I did watch South Park at way too young of an age. That was like me and my dad's thing. But my mom like couldn't really stand, like, if there were cartoon or like video game voices in the background, she would get like very annoyed by it. So we were never like watching The Simpsons. But my dad and I would watch BattleBots and South Park back to back, and I was like, "There's no way my mom would have been let that fly. Like, absolutely not." BattleBots rules. I'll watch it tomorrow. Let's go.
Wait, is BattleBots the one with the machines that like the engineers make and they just fight each other?
Yes. So they brought it back a couple years ago, and it's really good. The new version's even better. It feels more like pro wrestling even, because they have like a ring announcer now that introduces the bots, and like they're in their corners and stuff. But the first iteration of that, that would be me and my dad's thing. We'd watch BattleBots. Is
Tony Khan gonna buy that and put it on YouTube?
That's right. It's gonna be you're on Watch BattleBots on Bot Club. Yeah.
That's right. Oh wait, nope, that's not it. This one. Yo, it's the KJG and the KTG. You already know, Mott Spock. You already know, baby. Oh man, Kate. Lots to dive into, lots to digest. Pro wrestling has been freaking on fire lately. This week has been no different. Lots of news, lots of notes, lots of events. And now I know what you guys are all thinking. You know, SummerSlam was Saturday. Why don't you start with SummerSlam?
We started with Excite.
I said it with Excite. Yeah. I want to start with something else. I want to start with the other company, KTG, if you don't mind. Is that okay with you, KTG?
Let's talk whoever you want to talk about. I'm good. I'm game.
I want to go right into AEW. I know, Kate, before we hit the live button, you mentioned how, or maybe this was in the soft open, you mentioned how you really like Collision.
Yeah.
They're starting to take shape for the Wembley card. You got 3 very high profile matches. What are your thoughts on how? First of all, I guess we might as well just go over Collision while we have it,
sure.
Because with 3 shows before we even do a podcast, I guess we can spend time on Dynamite, but we'll leave that to the mark order. We could spend time on Rampage, but I think Collision is really, I guess, like the SmackDown to Dynamite's Raw. But a lot of people, just like SmackDown to Raw, might say that Collision is the better program. So what are your thoughts on Collision and how you feel the Wembley Stadium card is taking shape?
I think so. I like Collision a lot. To me, it feels, and Matt says it like week over week on here, that it feels like the pro wrestling show. And like I'm an in-ring gal, so matches that have that much breathing room, and it kind of feels to me more like the alternative that Dynamite started off feeling as, where Dynamite feels a little bit more, I hate this like pro wrestling versus sports entertainment stuff, but it feels like it's kind of shifted a little bit more in that direction, where it does feel like, man, there's just there's always one match on Collision that I walk away from being like, holy hell, that match was great, I feel like. And the presentation of it's great. It was really, really fun to go to live the couple times I got to go. So for me, and not just because CM Punk is there, but like I love the presentation. I love the format. And I think it's good to have that alternative. Like I think it's important to be able to showcase different wrestlers in different ways on your own brand. So I'm really glad it's there. And like a lot of my favorite guys do happen to be there, not just Punk, but I love Andrade. I love FTR. I love Miro. I love Ricky Starks. I'm so glad he's gotten rejuvenated out of this. So just good stuff. Like it's been really good to see. And as far as Wembley goes, like you're going to run Punk and Joe, and you're going to run FTR and the Young Bucks. Like there, I think like around 85,000. I wouldn't be surprised if that ends up selling out. I'm just intrigued to see what they do with Kenny, because if it's going to be Jericho and Ospreay, what does Kenny Omega do?
That's a great question, especially now with Pac apparently is on the shelf. They said so
that just sucks.
Yeah, guy can't catch a break. It's Collision to me is obviously it's a tremendously entertaining show. I still don't hold any like I'm not gonna say ill will because that's stupid. It's a wrestling show. You can't hold ill will towards an inanimate object. But I don't think that my enjoyment of Collision takes away from my enjoyment of Dynamite.
Not at all. Not at all. Yeah. They just feel different but equal, kind of.
Yeah, and it's almost like people are now like, and I don't want to say it's like a rapidly changing thing, but now people are almost like going into war underneath the AEW umbrella, which is so freaking like now it's like one has to be better than the other when it's all under the same thing. I will say this about Collision. It almost seems like there's like AEW when it first started was the, I guess for lack of a better term, the indie darling, the company that gave the guys breaks. And now Collision seems to be like the show that's a subset of that same umbrella that people really like more than the guys that were getting pushed on Dynamite, like the Andrades. Like, I mean, Darby Allin is on both shows, obviously. Even FTR is on both shows. But like your Andrades, you know, your Malachi Blacks, your Miros, who were like, all right, they're in AEW now, Dynamite, they're all going to be huge stars. Not so fast. But now Collision is giving them the opportunity to provide their fans with an opportunity to see them every week, whereas the one show a week, clearly that was not happening with them.
Yeah, and I think it's so funny because you can't really say it's talent hoarding when people are independent contractors as much. Like when WWE was in talent hoarding mode or whatever, they signed a lot of people just to put on the shelf and prevent them from signing somewhere else. But AEW's roster did, in my opinion, and I think a lot of people's opinion, get very bloated, like to the point where people just weren't getting TV time. I've always had complaints about the women's lack of screen time, and that just gets compounded by the fact that like there's a lot of men with a lack of screen time too, and it was like impossible. And there's still people that like I have no idea why Ethan Page is not on my screen. Like it kind of blows my mind.
And if he is, he shouldn't be like standing outside during like a Hardy Boys match.
Exactly, 100% with that. So
I mean, I get it. Like you want to get, and this is part of me. It kind of feels like the reason why you have all these guys paired up together. And I guess it's an admiral. It's kind of like when Vince, like with SummerSlam, all these guys don't have a spot on the card. Let's put them in a battle royal. Some of these guys might not have a spot on the card. Let's at least make them walk out to the ring. Let's put them in a group together, and then forget that the group ever existed a week later, and then put them in a different group. And then, so again, this isn't bashing. That's not what I'm trying to do. That's not the platform I'm on right now, bashing anything, because I still love AEW. I'm all AEW. Love it. Love the wrestling. But let me ask you this real quick. And I have a new segment, new game that I want to introduce. Not yet though, but later on it's going to be called Glad, Sad, Mad, ... or Indifferent. Where I picked out a bunch of highlights from this last week in professional wrestling across all the boards, mostly AEW and WWE though. And I'm just going to see if that makes Kate and myself glad, sad, mad, ... or indifferent. So you mentioned the woman. We got a taste of them. Statlander is now clearly going to be on, most likely for the most part, on Collision, unless she's been on Dynamite. I'm an idiot if that's the case.
I think she's floating a little bit, but it does seem like her and Mercedes had a great match. Like it, Mercedes is another one who like lost the ROH title and kind of just was lost in the shuffle a little bit. So that's the last thing that I think they need to straighten out is what's the relationship with ROH looking like. And last week's ROH was the best episode in a long time. So very, very encouraging to see there. But
yeah, and I'm sure we'll dive into ROH a little bit because that is Kate's forte, the telethon known as ROH. But anyway, going back to Collision and now them setting up this card for Wembley. I have a take that I'm not 100% sure a lot of people will like. And to me, and let me ask you this question. Let me preface it by asking this question to you first. Other than, again, we only know 3 matches. I'm assuming that we might get Darby Allin, Luchasaurus on this at some point. Other than maybe Adam Cole and MJF, the addition of Young Bucks, FTR, and Samoa Joe, CM Punk, do you see this show continuing as a storytelling device, or is this just a one night only, 85,000 people, whatever, bought tickets, let's give them the best possible matches we can? Like, do you see in a world where after this, we go to Chicago the next week and we're still having a CM Punk Samoa Joe feud, or we're still having a Young Bucks FTR feud? Do we put our hands together and
mix all three. So to me, I was a little less impressed just because it seems like they're booking for the crowd, which they should, because the crowd did fork over the money before anything was announced.
Yeah, this is wild.
So, which is nuts in amongst itself. And like you mentioned, the possibility of an Omega Ospreay match looms in the balance. Who knows what Chris Jericho is going to do? Who knows, what the Acclaim? Who knows what the Bucks? Well, we know what the Bucks are going to do. The bullet pool. Wait, what is it? Blackpool Combat
Club, the Bullet Pool Club.
The Bullet Pool Combat Guns.
I'm in on it. I'm in on the Bullet Pool Club. Let's go.
Bullet Pool.
Maybe it's going to be Mox and Omega, actually. I didn't even think about that. That could be. You could do a Mox Omega again.
Yeah, I guess. So I basically, do you see this furthering anything, or do you just feel like this being, other than, like I said, Adam Cole and possibly MJF, leading into a rematch in Chicago with some sort of stipulation? Do you see this as just a one-off type of show?
I think it almost can't be, because you have All In and All Out back together, but I think you're going to see, like, the fact that FTR and the Bucks are doing, like, Bucks FTR 3 right after the Elite sign, I think is a promising sign for maybe that we are going to get started on the trio story. I think that the Bucks and the Elite would have been stupid not to leverage this into their contracts. Like, it would have just been dumb to not make a bunch of money off the fact of, like, if we're going to work with that fucking guy again, you're going to pay us a lot of money, because that's going to draw more money than anything in history, probably, right? So it makes sense that the contracts took that long. It makes sense that they got paid very high. So hopefully that means that there is a possibility that happens. So you could easily set that up out of FTR and the Bucks, right? I think that would involve an FTR heel turn that would have to happen there, which would be tricky. But who knows? Like, that whole situation feels like everybody's tweener. So I don't even know what you do with that. Joe and Punk, it's like they, this is kind of the benefit, I feel like, of having so many people in different stables, is there's so many ways that you can go about stuff of making everybody's friends beat each other up. Like, what's Jay White doing, right? Like, you could do Punk and Jay White if you're keeping Punk face, which I don't really love. I did not like the end of. I liked everything in Collision except the last 5 minutes. Yeah.
Well, so it was a little. The last 5 minutes was a little. I don't want to say clunky, but a little anticlimactic. And I get it. Like, I get it. Steamboat is up there. He can't dive into the ring and make a 3 count just like that. So
he sold the shit out of his spot, though. I gotta be honest. Like, he did a good job. My thing is, a baby face CM Punk does nothing for me. And I'm like a huge Punk gal, but I think you have this weird battle where you've turned Ricky Starks heel, which is good. I think it was a nice shot in the arm. But you have people that genuinely want to boo Punk, and then you have people that are fans of him who know that he works heel better. Yeah. So it's like everybody wants to boo Punk, and I think you can get away with tweener Punk. But what they did on the main event of Collision was babyface stuff, and that is so boring to me. I have no interest in a babyface CM Punk.
I don't know. Part of me, I do like a good heel, but part of me loves rooting for somebody. And when CM Punk first showed up in AEW, I swear to God, that no matter who's to blame for that scrum between the Elite and him, no matter who's to blame, that totally, I mean, obviously he was hurt too, but that totally changed the narrative on what Punk was trying to do for AEW and what he's still trying to do, a la, Ricky Starks.
Yeah.
And so I don't think Punk, even though at the end of Collision, he had a pretty nice little CM Punk chant going.
You did.
So I don't know if that's because he came to the aid of Steamboat, he threw a chair down the freaking ramp at Ricky Starks or what it was, but the crowd. And I will say this about the AEW crowd, for most part of what I've noticed in live events, because I haven't missed a show in a long time, is it almost seems like they don't know what they want, because they boo Punk, and then all of a sudden the majority cheers Punk, and then
it feels weird because he came back in Chicago, and then they went to Canada,
Right?
Which is
that makes sense.
Kenny's, and then so you don't really know what the reaction is from town to town. That's why I don't hate the idea of him being tweener. But I think there's a lot of people that would get on board with booing him because they know he's more effective as a heel than a face. So I'm like, why aren't we turning this guy?
So
I also liked the idea of Punk teaming up with Jay White. Like, I thought the idea of like Punk turning on CMFDR.
Wow, I never even thought of that.
Like, would have been, that's such a nasty combination because I feel like Jay White and Punk are such different heels that could have been so much fun, and it feels like a missed opportunity to me.
But like the way, like, and again, Jay White's another guy that's benefiting from Collision, along with what's his name, Juicy Juice.
Juice is so
Juice he's having such a moment.
Juiceosaurus. Yeah. Christian's promo on Collision was my favorite thing that happened on either SummerSlam or on Collision, and maybe in wrestling history.
Was that his kid?
I think so. It was definitely, that kid was a plant multiple nights, but it looked like him. So
were they in Florida? I know they were in Florida they did the Dailies place. I know they were in Tampa for Dynamite, and I know they said like they're going to do the Rampage, the pre-tape Rampage backlot brawl. So I wonder if they were in Florida and Christian just had his kid there.
Very possible. Right? She looked like him, so if it wasn't his kid, but like, yeah, I feel like Collision being a vehicle for Jay White is good. Yeah. Jay White versus Kenny would be, I mean, that's a New Japan dream match again, right? They were in Greenville, South Carolina. Okay, so
yes,
close.
Thank you, Scott George.
Scott George is great.
I feel like if CM Punk did align, now would you have just aligned him with Jay White, or would the whole Bullet Club Gold have to have been involved?
I probably would have put Punk in Bullet Club Gold because Juice and the Guns are so goofy. Having like Jay White as that like assassin presence almost, and then Punk as kind of like the more loudmouthy talker guy. I feel like there's such a good balance in that. And then like him and Samoa Joe are on the same side of things, and Samoa Joe can just pop up as an ass kicker for whatever you want. Like that's a compelling little group running Saturday nights.
To me, like the thought of like CM Punk leading Bullet Club Gold is just kind of like screaming like New Nexus all over again to me.
Well, it would be cool to me if it was like I like stables that kind of have like two-headed snakes like that. Like I feel like him and Jay White are so different in their presentation and the way that they operate. I think it could be a really cool balance if you had both of them at the front of this.
And another New Nexus correlation, if they didn't kick Wade Barrett out, you could have had Punk and Wade Barrett lead the New Nexus, and you had that two-headed snake there too.
It's true. And like another situation where they're both like pretty different guys. The only time I don't like that is if they're too similar, because then it just feels redundant. But like if stylistically they're different, I think that's super fun.
Yeah. I mean, it's you always like use the analogy. I believe I stole this from The Office when Jim and Michael Scott like were both like co-managers in the office, and like Oscar's like, yes, show me a ship with two captains. Show me
a church led by two popes.
Yeah. Like, but that doesn't mean you can't be intrigued by it and not wonder maybe it doesn't work out, and then that makes the story. That's where you go with the story, or you get lucky and it does work out, and then you have this direction to go with the story. So I brought this up with Matt, and you mentioned about the Bucks possibly going to Tony Khan and be like, hey man, if we're gonna do this thing, pay us a lot of money. And now I feel like this would be the perfect time for, like you mentioned, to start that up again, because I was starting to think, man, like if they don't do something with this soon, like I'm gonna forget about it and just not care anymore. Like that I might be in the minority there, but like I know like AEW is a land of smart fans, like the smartest of the smart, so they'll never forget. So like, but to me, like as like still like wants to keep a little bit of that casual fan inside of him, I'm like, Punk's working Starks now. Bucks are working, Blackpool Combat Club now. I'm okay with both of these things. Like,
yeah, it is kind of weird because it's like you want to strike while the iron's hot, but I feel like with that situation, I don't think there's a wrong time to heat it back up, but I think there's a right time. Like, I think if you waited a year and revisited it, people are still going to be really interested. Right. But I think if you can capitalize on it, why wouldn't you? Especially when you're going cross-brand. like you have Collision that's just in its infancy, so it's going to need all the help that it can get. And they don't have a hard brand split, so that's, I think, a really fun way to kind of take advantage of that. But we'll see. I mean, there's still could very well be real animosity that is in the way of that. Just because the Elite resigned doesn't mean that everything is hunky-dory.
Yeah, and I mean, and you also saw on Dynamite when Kenny Omega, when they celebrated 200 episodes, he did drop the Collision name, just like, a few months prior, Punk said, I'm not even supposed to be here. It's the Wednesday show. So Easter eggs have been dropped, and I think me and Matt and Tony and Kevin talked about this last week. And, what the fuck? I just had a point. I lost my train of thought. The Real World's Championship. Thoughts on that?
See, that's another thing where I'm like, this doesn't work with a baby-faced Punk. Like, I think I was so excited about it initially because he's painting an X over the E and the on the AEW belts. He's talking about the symbolism of the X that's been with him, and that was notoriously with a heel run of his. And maybe he still is. Like, if he turns, a great way to turn CM Punk heel is to turn him on FTR. I mean, my God, like that would be massive amount of heat. But like, I feel like that fake championship thing is already not like the greatest angle, but I think there's a very clean way to have that get resolved, of like whether it's Punk and MJF revisiting their feud to unify them, or Kenny beats Punk and then Kenny and MJF unify them. Like, I like the idea of it. I don't even like the idea. It makes wrestling sense to resolve that. Right. But you can't have like the fake championship angle on a face. That's so weird and awkward and boring.
Why do you think they never tagged the interim thing on MJF like they had a history to do with, the TNT champion did it with the TBS championship, where they would just put an interim tag on it. It would seem like every other week there was an interim champion in AEW, and they didn't do it this time. So my thing is, like, I don't mind that CM Punk is doing it. Listen, Ric Flair did it, right? That's the callback. We all know that. He
was doing all that Hogan shit for the weeks before too. I was like, he knows what he's doing. He comes out and spray paints the belt. Like, I get it.
But the fact that AEW acknowledges it, to me, is like, I mean, if you wanted to acknowledge it, like, put the interim tag on whatever belt MJF is holding. Like,
yeah, I think MJF didn't get the interim tag because there was so much real life cloudiness around it. And also, like, let's not forget, Punk was pretty badly injured. Mm-hmm. And I think maybe I'm hoping they also kind of learned from their mistake in that way of like, you look at what happened with Tony Storm and Rosa, right? And it was like interim, and Rosa's still not back. So interim works if you, I think, know the end date when someone's going to get back. But I think people also got fatigued on it. And it does feel like you're undercutting who currently has it. But I kind of liked that, when Punk was gone and they did the interim thing the first time, Jon Moxley won, because it was like, now you're not telling me your interim champion is your filler champion. You've now told me that your interim champion is a worthy champion. So I kind of liked it. But my guess is you kind of can't do that with Max. He's like kind of too much lightning in a bottle.
Yeah, and even with the injury, even like if Punk was 100% healthy, we had until like Collision chatter started, there was a chance that we didn't know that Punk was even going to come back at all.
100%. So I think, you kind of can't do interim when you don't know what the real life circumstances are around it.
That makes sense. That does make sense. We are talking AEW, KTG, and KJG here on the
unsanctioned Shining Wizards Wrestling Podcast. Baby, flush the format. I stole that. I blatantly ripped that off from Z100.
That's okay. That's what we do in radio.
Flush the format. All right, Kate, how do you feel about switching over to some WWE?
We can switch over to some WWE.
WWE, of course. Now, the talk of the town is SummerSlam. Obviously, that happened on Saturday night. A lot of people, myself included, and I'm glad I'm not the only one that felt this way. I think this may have been the first lame duck or lame attempt out of WWE here, and one that you really couldn't afford to have, being that it's your second biggest pay-per-view of the year. Wasn't too crazy about it, Kate. What'd you think?
I was like, unfortunately, I felt very bored for a lot of the cards. Like there wasn't anything that was outstandingly bad outside of, I feel like the ending was bad. I feel like the way they ended SummerSlam was bad. But the whole front of the card, I was mostly just kind of like, everything felt very paint by numbers to me and extremely predictable. And I was also frustrated going into it that they, for time constraints, Rhea Ripley appeared to be a part of the Finn Balor and Seth Rollins stuff, but didn't have her own match. And then what they did to Becky and Trish, I just think is such a load of bullshit. Like that.
Do we know whether that was ever even supposed to be scheduled for SummerSlam?
It was, and she did Becky posted her photo shoot that was done for SummerSlam, and then they just didn't put it on the card. And I think part of the frustration to me as a fan is at Raw 30, they did this with Bayley and Becky's steel cage match, and that was in January. And then in February, she went into building this stuff with Trish out. And so now the next long-term feud that's supposed to have a major blow-off, they bump her off of the big event that's supposed to happen on again. And not to be like too feministy about it, but at the same time, if you look at it as what it would be like if they did this with the men, to me, it reads like you have a Hall of Famer. So I, for comparison's sake, just took Stone Cold. I know Trish Stratus isn't on Stone Cold's level, but like respective to gender.
I think she's close. I think she's close.
Close enough, right?
Yeah.
And then I feel like your uncrowned top babyface non-champion on the men's side would be Cody Rhodes. And I just can't imagine them doing a feud since February between Stone Cold and Cody Rhodes and then just being like, oh, we don't have time for it at SummerSlam. And that's essentially what they did with the women. So
without having any knowledge, like I didn't know about the photo shoot, right? I didn't know that was a thing that was going around. So when I heard that, when back on Raw, when they announced that in 2 weeks in Winnipeg, that's where the match is going to happen. My initial thought was like, all right, so like it's not the first time something like this has happened. Like AEW might have like a big event coming up, but no, they'll promote a Dynamite match as opposed to like a pay-per-view match. And I'm thinking like the same thing might have happened here. They're in Winnipeg. There's a lot of shows. Ratings are just as important now as they have ever been, if not more than they've ever been. I'm thinking to myself, like when I first heard like Adam Pearce make that announcement on Raw, I'm thinking to myself, all right, you want to boost the number? That'll get a good number. I mean, SummerSlam's already paid for. SummerSlam will sell itself. Let's save this, build it up tonight, and then, do something really cool with them tonight. Maybe close the show with them tonight, in a pull apart or this and that, and get us to them headlining next week. Am I delusional in that line of thinking? Like, isn't there too much to promote that if you can put your top guys here, your top girls there, your top performers here? I mean, I don't even know how premium live event payouts work. So like, I don't even know if you're getting a payout for that anymore. But I don't know. I just felt like there's a whole lot to promote. So why not save this for a show in 2 weeks on Raw?
Because they already did all the wrestling work to lead it to SummerSlam and then moved it. And on top of that, it wasn't just them. We now know, unfortunately today, that Sonya Deville is injured, but you didn't have the women's tag titles on it. And you also didn't have Rhea freaking Ripley on it.
Yeah.
And on top of that, Asuka felt like the third most important person in her own triple threat.
Yeah, so that was strange that she got the second intro in that.
They had like the C4 branded whatever the hell, but like the fact that she came out second, this was the only story that her title was actually kind of in, and she was the least important part of it. The fact that they had Bianca go over and Io cash in on Bianca, when we've already seen Damage Control versus Bianca for literally months, and everybody I think kind of wanted this Io and Asuka feud. It's a real bummer, and I feel like they had already, to go from February to August with this feud, all the work that especially Becky put in, because Trish has looked all right, but she did not look great when this started. And Becky's done everything she could to raise Zoe Starks up through this, who came in hot and now feel like she's kind of fallen off a cliff. It felt like a slap in the face because they had already kind of indicated they did all the wrestling work to say it was going to be on SummerSlam, and now they're moving it to Winnipeg. And Trish Stratus even tweeted like, that's not even my hometown. Like,
she's from Toronto. I'm pretty sure Manitoba and Ontario don't really like each other, as far as I know.
No, it's like not a.
Yeah,
it's not like a. It's just very clear that they tried to pretend that was the reason, right? And not like authentically like, oh, it's a hometown thing, because it's not her hometown.
But I will say
like,
this:
Americans think Canada's one place, right? It's like,
so like as a big hockey fan, like I know the ins and outs of how different provinces like each other, don't like each other. The Winnipeg Jets and the Toronto Maple Leafs, there's no love lost there at all.
There you go.
And even though the Leafs are in the East and the Jets are in the West, but there is
like, listen to what you just said. They're in different divisions. That's how far apart they are.
Yeah.
That is not someone's hometown. And Matthew Birch is kind of alluding to this in the chat. Like, we had all these video packages. We had that Slim Jim Battle Royal, which had no stakes on it. Like, there's they should have cut more stuff for time constraints, because we still finished it at midnight anyway, and figure out a way to get it on the card. Like, people will say like, well, what would you have cut? And I'm like, well, first of all, that's not my job. And second of all, I usually have something that I can point to. You had no stakes on the Battle Royal. I understand that they made a shit ton of money from it, but there's no excuse for it. Like, there was an hour between when Io Sky cashed in the middle of the men's championship match. Like, figure it out. Do the radio edit of Roman Reigns' entrance and you're there. Like,
yeah. And going back to why SummerSlam confused me, it's like, I always say let it play out, let's see what happens. But to me, like, Io Sky cashing in a total heel move when you had the perfect storyline set up with her chasing Asuka, which is what people wanted. And now Asuka doesn't get pinned, and now is Asuka going to be a baby? Is she going to be a good guy again? Like, is she going to chase the heel Io Sky? To me, Asuka is the natural bad guy in this, and eventually maybe Io Sky does turn on Damage Control. But how can you do that after that, like, that legit real moment they shared in the ring with Dakota Kai and Bailey? And it just this whole show had just a weird vibe to me.
It did not feel like the biggest party of the summer, Kevin. I think that's what, like, I just couldn't care less about Cody Rhodes right now, man. Like, I know. Oh my God.
I know. And I couldn't disagree with you more.
I so am sick. If I have to hear about his fucking injuries or his dad anymore, I'm going to vomit. I'm so bored by this.
I don't, but he's got so much passion in his promos, and he doesn't really mention Dusty as much anymore, by the way.
He doesn't. It just got so driven into the ground. But Kevin, like, yes, he has so much passion in his promos. What the hell is he saying? Like, he's saying nothing. And that part's not even his fault. Cody Rhodes, the performer, I think is great. I think he's one of the best storytellers that there is. But they never gave us a reason for any of this Brock and Cody stuff. The initial reason they started this feud was because Brock was mad that Cody main evented Mania. That was his spot, is what this all started with. And that is not a story, and it's definitely not one that takes you this far. So I'm just like, I couldn't have been more bored. And the upsetting thing is, I feel like both the Bloodline story and this story would have been helped so much if Roman dropped one title. There's such an easy way to do it.
Right.
And that Cody Rhodes wins one title. Brock is livid because he chased Roman around for like a fucking decade and didn't end up with it. That is an infinitely more compelling story right there. And then on the other side, you have Roman now clinging to the one title he has left and doing anything he can to keep it and going absolutely maniacally insane, trying to hold on to this one thing he has left and questioning everybody in the Bloodline who let this happen, that he lost to Cody Rhodes. Like, there was such a natural, perfect divergence there that I feel like both stories would have been infinitely better if they had just let that happen. But instead, we have Brock chasing Cody around and maiming him for no given reason. So while Cody gives a great promo, I still don't know what the fuck any of these promos were about.
Did you?
What
See, you know what sucks is that you really put me on this box. I just said I loved all of it, but I really can't. I really can't remember. Other than saying like, I will fight Brock Lesnar today. I will fight Brock Lesnar tomorrow. I will fight Brock Lesnar in the parking lot. I will fight Brock Lesnar at the Dunkin' Donuts. I will fight Brock Lesnar in the middle of the Slim Jim Battle Royal. I will bump Trish and Becky Lynch and fight Brock Lesnar. But
it's not even. It's not Cody's fault. I can't tell you what he said,
to be honest with you.
Yeah, he says nothing very artfully, and I had that complaint with Punk for a lot of these Collision promos where I'm like, you're not saying anything because you're not in a feud at that point, right? Like, so I'm always impressed by people who can make nothing sound great, but and none of that's Cody's fault. I just feel like you had Brock Lesnar and Cody Rhodes and creative that was aimless this entire time. Like, they never really gave us a reason. And that's the one thing I remember Cody saying in this promo was he was like, I don't know why this guy is attacking me, and me being like, yes, nobody does.
Yeah.
Like, nobody knows why this guy is after you.
It
like
literally
this.
happened out of nowhere.
Yeah.
For no reason. I'll be your partner, buddy. I'll be your tag team partner. Hey, we're friends now. We're friends. Nope.
And all that, there's so many things that they could have just, if they had just given us a real reason, it could have been so great. But like, because Brock is so vicious in the way he attacks people, like, to be that vicious to have no motivation to hurt someone doesn't work. Like, you cannot go break this guy's arm for no reason. Like, that doesn't track.
Did you watch, speaking of your vitriol for Cody Rhodes, did you watch the documentary, the Peacock special?
I have not watched it. I intend to. And I really like Cody. I just am very over this presentation of him right now because it feels so, there's no layers to it because they haven't given him any reason to fight anybody since Mania.
So I brought this up with the guys a couple times. I don't think we are yet, and I think I'll tell you why I don't think we're there yet, and it's literally just one word. Do you think that we are at the point where people might start seeing him like they did John Cena and like they did Roman Reigns? Are we anywhere, in your opinion, are we anywhere close to that yet?
No, I think I feel very much in the minority of being over Cody Rhodes. I think there's a lot more people that feel like you than I do. And even if you listen to the reactions in the arenas, like, they're not mixed reactions.
Yeah.
He's very over in spite of all this. And I think that goes to exactly what you were saying. Like, Cody is great. They need to give him creative that matters. And the one good thing that came out of SummerSlam was like, it was a definitive win. He used the stairs, which was weird because he flat out cheated and should have been DQ'd.
Did he use the stairs before the table spot? He did, right?
It was before the table spot, yeah.
Okay.
Like, that should have been a DQ. And when you bury refs that early in the card, it just looks bad, especially because it's like, well, why would anybody not try and break the rules? This guy's not enforcing them.
So, like, pro wrestling is always weird, like, especially the disqualification stuff. Like, I've seen it done both ways, and I've even heard the announcers mention it, where, like, if it happens outside the ring, technically it's not a DQ, but I've also seen stuff being called a DQ that was outside the ring.
Like, somebody sneezes on someone, sometimes it is. Yeah.
They flipped the coin and decided, no, this is not a disqualification today. So
it's up to, as I always say, the referee's Jonathan Discretion.
Yeah, don't get me started on discretion. All right, so real quick, we did have picks. Tony, Matt, Handsome Kevin, and I. So we're gonna. Is this the right banner?
You have the general banner. Right?
I have the general banner. Technology, everybody.
And look, you can get the banner up, but we know the picks music is where it's at. We need the music.
So
is that on the soundboard?
It's on the soundboard. I don't have access to the picks music, so I can just go like, "Oh, Tony."
It's time for the Shining Wizards pick this.
Everybody loves picks, but Tony because he stinks. All right, so real quick, we're gonna run down the SummerSlam picks. KJG overall is still in the lead, 161, 62-2. I went 4-3 last night. Tony is actually tied with me, 161, 67-2. He went a whopping 6-1.
Wow,
last night. Matt is in third with 157, 71-2. He went 4-3 as well. Statman Jones, Brendan Haney, is 153, 75-2. He went 4-3. And last place is Handsome Kevin, 144, 84-2. He had a respectable night last night at 5-2. So me and T-Donk are tied for the lead in the old Pigsky McGickskis. And so, yeah.
So getting back to it, anything else that you took away from SummerSlam?
Oh, God.
So I kind of wanted to do this in like, I guess we could circle back to it in the glad, sad, mad, and or
Sure.
indifferent game. Because I have a bunch of topics here that we could do. Anything though?
Oh, thoughts on I guess Raw having enough of Kevin Patrick and Michael Cole going back on Raw now.
I think Kevin Patrick seems like a lovely fella who
is baby, that
terrible at commentary.
I was gonna say that's what we call a political answer, but then you just said he sucks.
No, you know what it is too? It's and he's even said in interviews and stuff, like he was just told he was on commentary that night. Like there was no preparation or acclimation to the role, and he's not great. And I think it's compounded by the fact that he's in there with Corey Graves, who is very polarizing. Like he's not my favorite, but people who like him really like him for what he does. But you have to be, I think, a really strong kind of like straight man there to offset Corey Graves, whether you like him or not, to make that dynamic work. And it just doesn't. And I think it's just so weird to me that they keep Vic Joseph in NXT, because I think Vic Joseph's really good and Booker T's a fucking mess down there, and there's nothing he can do about it. And I'm like, why would you not get, like, I think you've got Cole and Joseph being on opposite anchoring roles would be something that's really, really good for the brand. And then you can kind of fill in with Graves and Barrett and whoever around that.
I feel like they have to know that they have to know that Booker T's the drizzling shits, which is why they keep Vic Joseph there.
It is painful every Tuesday. It is rough. He doesn't know who anybody is. Like he just does not watch the product or care. He knows Roxanne because he trained her and nobody else. But
so like I've been saying it since he was on SmackDown. Booker T is the worst right there.
Oh gosh, and it's only gotten worse because it's like he just says the same things about everyone. Like you could just have a soundboard and play like Shucky Ducky Quack Quack, Champagne Wishes and Caviar Dreams, the heart of this kid, let me tell you something, and that's your whole broadcast.
Yeah, Scott George, no, we did not pick the Battle Royal because only like 12 guys were announced, and like we saw with Omos, we did not know if anyone else was going to be added that might be a wild card that could actually take it away from LA Knight. And so we did not pick that. And because we were all super busy that day, we had to get our picks in by a certain time. So we wouldn't be able to do it. Even if we saw somebody surprise us at the entrance, we wouldn't be able to do that. So do you want to wrap a bow on SummerSlam? Is there anything else that you think that needs to be mentioned?
I really liked Drew versus Gunther a lot, and I feel like it just got lost in where it was on the card. Shayna and Ronda, your mileage may vary on, but I'm glad that that feud went the way it did, since it sounds like Ronda might be done, and Shayna going over I think was good. I know the MMA rules thing was not for everyone and kind of awkward.
I had no idea that it was even and I watch Raw every week. I had no idea it was an MMA rules match.
They kind of threw it. I thought the promos on Raw were fantastic.
Yes, now they were
kind
good.
of threw it in there, but I think because the actual promos were so great, that part almost got lost in it a little bit, because it was like, holy shit, Shayna just like called out her goddaughter or whatever. Like,
yeah,
that was kind of more the takeaway, and I was glad about that. But yeah, I liked the ending of Seth Rollins and Finn. Even though Judgment Day isn't for me, it was nice to see like the overbooking not work, because we see the overbooking work all the time. Damian Priest is now a meme forever, whether he wants to be or not, with his face. That was absolutely hysterical.
Well, when he was staring down Finn. I gotta check that out. I gotta go find that.
It yeah, it was. I liked the briefcase coming into play and Seth, and it only worked because of Seth's timing with it. Like him using the briefcase to slam Finn's head into it was really well done. Like, and you have to have that spot time perfectly, and I was really glad that he did. But yeah, I think maybe Shayna and Ronda should have just been a submission match. Like, I don't think the MMA rules thing worked, but I felt like a lot of it was just very, very predictable. Like you knew Cody was going to win. Brock throwing him out of the ring a bunch, I thought was very, very boring. But I mean, the main event I thought was the worst decision that they made with the Bloodline in a really, 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 really long time.
Yeah, but that to me that was predictable too. Like one way or the other. To me, this was like the first, maybe not the first, but the one that I can remember. I guess because it was 2 days ago. This is like the first real major hiccup, unless maybe you could think of another one in this whole 3-year-long story.
Yeah, I mean, my thing is, it's like the Universal title right now is just like the send them home annoyed title. Like it.
Real quick, did you notice that he only had the one belt this time when he came out?
I did, yeah, and so to me, it's like you didn't give it to Drew at Clash, you didn't give it to Sami in Montreal, you didn't give it to Cody, and I feel like those are all forgivable things leading into this. I think the ultimate, from a purely creative standpoint, resolution is that you give it to Jay. Because it's the ultimate payoff of where you started this story.
Right.
But even if you want to have Roman retain, Jimmy turning on Jay makes absolutely no sense. I don't know how much you keep up with SmackDown specifically, but like, so perfect. So you've seen Jimmy was the first person to turn on Roman.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think they're going to do the he's back in cahoots with Roman thing. I think they're going to do the why are you main event Jey Uso and I'm never main event Jimmy? And I just think that's the weakest fucking thing. Like,
so do you think he's gonna be like, the only thing about Stinger that's for sure is that nothing's for sure, kind of like Lone Wolf Jimmy Uso?
I don't know. I mean, they clearly want to do a Jimmy and Jay feud, which I'm sure will, like, that piece of it'll be great, but it's also just like, I think this is the third time we've seen a masked figure appear, and this is every match is like, oh my god, somebody in the Bloodline accidentally either hit a super kick or a spear on not who was intended. And that's my whole thing, was like, I felt like this was building to Roman retaining, and then maybe everything switches to Solo. And I thought that would have been awesome, because if it's not going to be Jay, and I think it still might be Cody, but to me, it's like, okay, if it's not Jay, the ultimate payoff is to actually make a new star in Solo Sikoa. And I feel like that guy has nailed every beat of this. I didn't think they were going to do it, but like, I thought that would have been a really, really cool reward for things, because it actually makes a new star out of someone. And I feel like now Solo is like the most lost in the shuffle when he should not be.
So I'm not as, and I think Solo was necessary to be added to the Bloodline when you had all four of them together. To me, like, I don't know, like, do you, as I sit here right now in August of 2023, do I want to see a Roman Reigns Solo Sikoa main event WrestleMania? Like,
I think you do at Royal Rumble. I think there's something like interesting. And it's like, if you build it the right way, I think you could. I watched Solo all through NXT too, so I think I have a little bit. A lot of people have only seen Solo on the main roster. Like, he never says anything. They're like very impressed by like his body language and how he carries the story in that way. But like, I've seen Solo as a face, and I've seen him give promos that I know the guy's really good with that stuff. So I can understand why people might not be as bought in, because he's mostly been a cog in the wheel. But like, I think you could, if you built out the story the right way, make it really, really interesting.
And I got to give them the benefit of the doubt, because 9 times out of 10 they have done things the right way. And so basically, I guess, so I don't know why. You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of like every single time like Matt Hardy turned on Jeff Hardy.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, all right, so he's not like, so Jeff Hardy's not in the main event anymore. What can he do? Oh, let's feud him with his brother.
It's
like that, to me, that had very much like Matt Hardy turning on Jeff Hardy when Jeff Hardy fought Edge at, I think it was a Royal Rumble. And then that lasted till WrestleMania in a stretcher match. And then 2 weeks later on SmackDown, Matt Hardy was saving Jeff Hardy again.
Yep.
Like,
I like it because the Usos had the most successful tag run ever, right?
Yes.
So it's good to clear that out in a way. But at the same time, it's like, now Roman's not going to be around for the next pay-per-views. I don't know if he defends it, or like for the next few months or whatever. I don't know if he defends it at Survivor Series, because Survivor Series just doesn't feel like what it used to anymore. So I'm like, are we just going to go through a few months of programming with no champion on SmackDown again? And I also don't, and I know I'm like down on the creative around Cody and up on the performer, but at the same time, I think they have a really long way to go if they think they can sell me on the idea that Cody doing it the second time around is more rewarding than doing it the first time around with Cody. I just don't. I heard I saw Alan Cheapshot on Twitter say, like, you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube, and I was like, that's exactly it. Like, you can't recreate the moment that you had.
Right.
And I don't think there's enough creative to get you there. And I also feel like Cody right now, the things that make the most sense with him are to go after Gunther for the IC title, because that's really his dad's title. And he beat Seth every time he faced him. And Seth is walking around with the title. So I don't even feel like the logical story for him to finish is the one with Roman anymore. And I don't know if that's by design or if they're just going to give me what feels like the third best story for Cody now. Because Cody needs to win that title. He doesn't necessarily need to win it from Roman, right? So
no, you know what? That's a fair point. But now you have to take it off Roman and give it to somebody else. And then is Cody beating whoever beats Roman?
That's why I thought like a Jay or a Solo could be really interesting, because I think you could have transitional reigns from them. I don't think they need months and months. And Cody coming back to beat one of them, I think you could do a lot of really fun stuff with. And I feel like Jay winning it and then finding out he ain't the tribal chief that his cousin was is like actually really good for his character of like, holy shit, I was not ready for this role or whatever. And he drops it like pretty early.
I got to be looking at this with like straight like Cody blinders on. Like I have to be, because like to me, like there's no other person that beats Roman than Cody. There's just not, like, because I won't get the same feeling if he beats Jay or if he beats, you know, Solo, or if he beats or if he beats Gunther. Like actually I could, if Gunther beats Seth and then Cody maybe beats Gunther for that belt before on his way to getting, like, Gunther to me is a future world champion. Like there's no doubt in my mind.
Yeah.
They love him, but the other thing is now you have to get the IC belt off him first, or you don't. I don't know. Maybe you don't.
I think that'll happen soon, because he's gonna break Honky Tonk's record, right? And then
gotta break the record.
Gotta break the record. That one I don't mind as much, because it's like I feel like Gunther's reign has been really, really good.
Yeah, and the last times we hear the Honky Donkey Man's name of all the time.
Okay with it. I hope it's Sheamus that does it. Like that would be that's finishing a story.
Sheamus is letting people know how he feels. He's in his feelings right now, Sheamus.
He is in his feelings right now.
Sheamus is all up in his feelings right now.
But
you're listening to the Shining Wizards podcast. It is KTG and KJG. Here, follow Kate on the old Twitter at Miss Kate Fabe on Instagram, at Kate'stagrams on Instagram, which I just said, Department of Redundancy Department. You can find her on the Mark Order podcast right here on the Shining Wizards Network. Fightful Select, Sour Grabs, ROH, and SmackDown post shows. And of course, the dear good close personal friend of the Shining Wizards, Kate. I feel like right now I'm going to take this opportunity to show some love to the Shining Wizards Network.
Please do.
And then show some love to the people that support us on the old Patreon.
Love that for us.
So let me go put the old banner up, because I am the 5-tool player. Boom. Guys, please check out all the shows on the Shining Wizards Network. It is a family of podcasts that we all love, and we treat each other with respect. And it's a really cool hodgepodge, smorgasbord of different concepts and different genres of podcasts. So let's get right to it. We got 30 screams or less. We got 2 for this shit. Wrestling Night in Canada, the Bread Club, that is Matt and Kieran Thompson's vehicle, New Japan. Radioactive Metal, the guy's Snowy's vehicle. The Turnbuckle Throwbacks, day 1-ish right there. ROH Revelry, The Year of Duke and Rogue, Inconclusive Breakdown, The Broadcast, they live together, right? Right? That's us, right? Yes. And of course, last but certainly not least, the Mark Order podcast, very abbreviated read for that, because, you know, flying by the seat of my denim jean shorts here. That's what I'm
Talking
doing.
all things all elite at the Mark Order podcast. Thank you very much.
That's right. Talking all things all elite at the Mark Order podcast. And now I want to take this time to thank those who take their time to support the Shining Wizards. As you can see right up there on that screen, these are our Patreon producers. And you, just like all these fine feathered friends here, can support us for as little as $1 a month. So let's get to it. Of course, first and foremost, you have the queen of the Shining Wizards, Kathy Hummer, not to be outdone by the king of the Shining Wizards, Manny Crazzo. You got Dan Russinello at Not Danny Russ. And of course, the wonderful co-host, guest host that I have here right there, Kate Hensler, Miss Kate Fabe, host of Sour Graps Fightful. That's the sixth plug of the night for KTG. Matt Garifo. Kate, is there any relation?
There's no relation actually between Kevin Garifo and Matt Garifo.
No relation. I don't know. He just wants to be like me. He's an imposter. Who dat? Matt 81, Thomas Cops, the Mott Spock, the man of a million nicknames, at High Spot Tom, marking out and ROH Revelry. And you got Brendan Haney, Statman Jones, at Irish Misfit, Ryan Schlong at the Mark Order. At Mark Order Pod. He is part of the Mark Order podcast. Mike Peterson at LOL Mike Peterson. And we keep saying we're going to get rid of him from the list, but we're not. He's 1/4 of the Shining Wizards. That is Handsome Kevin at Year of Pod, at JJ Rogue Means, and TOTS Pod. Alrighty. Michael Hammond is here as well. Shout out to Michael Hammond. And David Henry Bauer III at Bauerhausen TX. He makes experimental sandwiches on Matt's food truck.
That's not right.
Yeah, no. Does that? Are you sure? He makes experimental pizzas on GarageBand.
He eats experimental music.
He eats experimental music.
Nailed it.
On Matt's front steps.
There it is.
There it is. All right. Then
that was a fun Mad Lib.
Yeah. And William Mercier Jr. at W Mercier Jr. That's MERCIERJR. Want to thank you just like that. Support us
Kevin,
for little as $1.
You have to say the thing.
What's that?
You have to say the thing about William Mercier Jr.
I know we don't do that anymore.
Why?
The board, we voted on it.
That's rude.
No, it is. Listen, we all
I can't
agree.
believe I missed that it was gone. Shame on me.
Yeah. So, like we said, follow us at patreon.com Wizards Podcast for just as little as $1 a month. We just banged out some great bonus content. I mean, you can't get that for $1. You gotta hit the Scarol for that. You gotta take
him to dinner first if you're gonna bang out that much content.
Please, I'm a cheap date. White Castle and some Pabst Blue Ribbon, and I'm in there like swimwear. Now, how do we get this brand out of here?
Lives are gonna be in William Mercier's hands. You know what I mean?
I know what you mean, Kate.
And I'm telling everybody good night, Gracie, at the end of the show. I don't give a shit.
You. Remind me that I have to do the music for that too, the outro music. That should be fun. All right, Kate. So I mentioned earlier, obviously, we want to touch on SummerSlam and obviously AEW. I mean, Impact. I mean, we don't have to touch on every wrestling show that existed this week. But I do want to mention something that kind of happened under my nose, which I didn't know was going to happen. It involves Impact and WWE, and that is former guest of the show, Nick Aldis.
Yeah.
Is now, I've seen reports that he has signed. I don't believe that to be true. I believe he is having a tryout backstage as a producer. What are your thoughts on Nick Aldis perhaps coming on board as a producer as opposed to as a talent here?
I think it's a waste of Nick Aldis to do that. I feel like he's great in the ring. I feel like he would be a really good fit for WWE. I'm trying to see if he was officially signed anywhere, but that's been the longstanding rumor for a bit. I'm kind of bummed because his time in Impact was so short, and I think there was some good juice in there. I think that could have been really, really fun, but I don't know. I like Aldis a lot. I feel like there's a lot of that they could do with him from a ring perspective, but we'll see. I know there's like some rumors too, because I think Mickie James is booked in England right before All Out. That could be really fun. Maybe she's just making an appearance there, but like husbands and wives tend to travel together. So if Nick Aldis is still a free agent, good for him. But I feel like you're missing the mark if you're not keeping him in the ring. Like I think he offers a lot from that perspective.
let me ask you this though, because, and this can be me thinking like totally like weird, paranoid, outside the box, Kevin.
I'll take it.
Would they have to drastically change how he presents himself if they brought him into either NXT or the main roster? Because to me, and this goes back to a gentleman we just finished talking about, to me, he's way too Cody Rhodes. Suit, respect, legacy, history. To me, he would come across, if they didn't do something to his character or the way he presented himself, he would come not a second-rate Cody, but like Cody a Jace.
I understand where you're coming from. I think Cody is so pure babyface right now, and Nick Aldis would be great as the foil heel of a similar presentation. I think you'd have to switch things up, but I think you could do similar archetype, other side of it. MJF is kind of like his own lane, but like that same thing of like rich guy, fancy suit guy on the heel side, I think is something that could be really effective in countering a guy like Cody. And I also think you could keep him tucked away on SmackDown in a mid card. Like, I don't know if Nick Aldis has to come in and be that guy.
Yeah.
But I do think he's like, I would sign up for Nick Aldis versus LA Knight in a second, or Nick Aldis versus Santos Escobar. There's a lot of things that you could do that don't necessarily have to, like, not everybody has to come in and be that guy.
Right.
And I feel like, like Karrion Kross is a great example. Like some of the guys that they brought back, like, haven't really done what I think they thought they were going to do on the way back. So definitely would need to differentiate, but I feel like Aldis as a heel could be a nice flavor to things.
The way you kind of just spelt it out, I'm almost kind of like doing a 180. You're like, well, maybe you don't have to. Like, you have Cody Rhodes who worked his ass off to get the suits that he wears, whereas Nick Aldis could be like, hey, I was born in these suits type gimmick. And he doesn't have to be that guy, because both sides, both Raw and SmackDown, are so loaded with talent that the untapped match potential on both sides would have been incredible. And I also kind of feel like, so I don't know how old Petey Williams is, but the fact that Petey Williams didn't get a shot in NXT and he was brought in right as a producer too, I'm kind of getting that same vibe out of Nick Aldis. But hey, and just be like, look at AEW. AEW has their producers wrestle. So I don't know how WWE feels about that. I don't know if that's more of a directive that maybe like the producers in AEW go to Tony and like, hey, let me wrestle on Ring of Honor. Let me wrestle on Rampage. Let me wrestle on this or that. So who knows?
So Nick Aldis is backstage as a producer tonight on Raw. It doesn't say anything about him being signed, but he is there. So he is producing right now.
I saw somebody post something about that. And I was like, wait a second, I don't think he's signed per se, but he's getting a shot, which is good. And you never know. Like, maybe they bring him in, maybe he works a dark match or something, and they like what they see, and they make him an on-screen talent. I know I said I didn't want to touch on everything that went down this week in wrestling, but I feel like I glossed over a huge thing on Dynamite. And this is unsanctioned. This is flush the format. We're skipping all around, baby. We're skipped to my Lou, baby. We are skipped to my Lou. Hikaru Shida.
Yes.
Becoming the AEW Women's Champion on episode 200 of Dynamite. Again, KTG, I bring this to you because a little skeptical about the reasoning for it. Of course, with All Out or All In. All In is Wembley, right? And All Out is Chicago.
I do it all the time. I always invert them.
So any thought in your head that this is going to be a short reign and that Toni Storm gets it back in her home country or in her home, whatever land?
No, I think
or maybe Paige or Soraya.
I think it'll be protected losses. I see this going in either like a Four Corners match or there may be in a tag program on the card or something to get them those wins. But Shida winning, I felt like, was so necessary because this storyline, I loved what they were building with like the Outcasts and the Homegrowns, and then it just, ever since Hayter went down, got so stuck in the mud. What's impressive to me about Shida is she has not been featured. Shida has not been featured on TV that much, but if you listen to the crowd, like they go crazy for her every time that she's out there. And I'm just so impressed that she maintains getting those pops and continues to be such a fan favorite. Everyone has been kind of booking that who's she going to lose to at Wembley thing. And I don't know. I'm kind of bought in on the idea of her still leaving champion. Maybe something happens within the Outcasts where they cost each other. Yeah. I don't know what that looks like. Maybe she just pits like Willow or Britt Baker or someone else in that mix. But I feel like Sheeta really does deserve a title reign that's not been cannibalized by the pandemic. If you watch her in the ring, she's great. If you listen to any of the, all the backstage drama crap, her name's never in any of it, right? Like she just seems like the consummate professional to go there and work and be that reliable face that they needed. I'm just so glad something happened with this story because it's pushing it forward.
So I forgot that Sheeta was a Daily's Place champ, right? She was
for the most part, yeah. Most of her.
I forgot about that. So let me ask you this: were you, when you saw that result, were you necessarily surprised?
I was, just because I thought something might happen with this story. Because it's just been sitting there, and we did hear Jamie Hayter's not going to be back for quite a while. So I was like, okay, well, maybe now that they have the clarity around that, they're going to do something. But I just figured that moment would have come at Wembley itself. But I guess you don't want Toni Storm losing the title at Wembley either. Yeah. So it's kind of a toss up there. I thought Toni Storm's promo on Collision was hysterical, by the way. Like, she was just so distraught and not knowing herself anymore. Like, she was a riot.
TJ, can I tell you, like, I very rarely laugh out loud about the stuff that does not deserve to be laughed out loud at. When they just went to, I guess was it Tony Schiavone with her?
Yeah.
And they just cut to that, and then you just see Toni Storm's face. Like, she looked like a pouty little kid that just didn't get her ball.
God, and with the curlers in her hair. Yeah. It was so. She's really funny too, and on at press conferences after shows too, because she'll just stay in kayfabe, and all she says is she's gonna slap the tits off of people, and she all right. She gets underrated, I think, on some of her character work with stuff like that.
I'll put you on the spot right now. This could be tough. Funnier, more character, driven-ish, or who has more potential? Because Toni Storm hasn't given a lot to show this part of her character. Toni Storm or Billie Kay from the Iconics?
Ooh. I'm going to go Billie Kay just because, not only was she incredible in the Iconics, but we had that whole her walking around with her resume run, too, that I feel like was so, so, so funny. And she had the mosh pit moment, right? I feel like Billie Kay, we've just gotten to see it more. So I'll go Billie Kay on that front.
I agree 100%. And the Pro Wrestling Podcast is here to support Kate.
Hey, David.
I would take offense to that, but I can't argue because we're all here to support Kate.
Thank you.
So there you go. Pro Wrestling Podcast. Thank you very much. And I'm trying to get to all the banners or all the chats as we can here. But, of course, we're unsanctioned.
That's right.
And Kate, so I think, oh God, I would love to see either Billie Kay or both of them back somewhere.
I don't know what Peyton Royce just had her baby not long ago, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know how far away she is from getting in the ring, but I feel like Billie Kay is so great. I wish they would just bring them back as a tag team to WWE.
God, imagine what they would do.
Yeah.
They would that division. Not all right to Sonya Deville, and sucks what happened to her.
Sucks.
Absolutely sucks. And inadvertently, not that we obviously want, the concern is for Sonya Deville and for her to get better, but that indirectly or directly affects Chelsea Green's future. Now, whether or not,
if there's anyone who can navigate it, though, like Chelsea with this.
Oh,
1, 2, 3, basketball, and she's just been fucking killing it. So I think they'll be able to substitute somebody in there for Sonya. I think there's a lot.
So that was gonna be my next question. There. That was gonna be my next question, because I had the first name that came into my head, and you might know more about the women's roster than I do. The first name that came into my head that might work with Chelsea was either, now there's two. But I don't know if she's still on Raw or not. The first one I thought was Dana Brooke.
So she's been in NXT.
Okay.
And she has a story going on there right now.
Okay. I think I do know that, yeah.
I don't hate that idea because it's not been the best story.
Okay, and now what? Let me throw this name at you. I'm not sure if she's on Raw or SmackDown, but this is actually really funny because they're actually Eskimo sisters. What if you put Emma?
Emma would be great. Emma would be a great call. I think
Emma and Chelsea Green.
and they worked each other in Impact before, right? So that could be really, really fun. I like that idea.
Yeah. Oh, so I was either gonna say Dana, Emma, or God, like don't. There's no world where they strip her of the belts, is there?
I mean, it's the women's tag teams. They switch
like everything's allowed in that world.
You could. I mean, they called up the Spooky Scottish Witch gals, and they did nothing with them. Isla Dawn and Alba Fire. Like you could just give it back to them. But I feel like Chelsea's character is so strong and she's so over right now that even if it's like pulling someone, I was trying to think if there's anyone from NXT that's ready to come up and could fill that role. I actually think someone that could be a really fun offset to her that would fill that role really well. But she's rehabbing right now. I think Wendy Chu would be hysterical to like walking around with her, not buying into her same bullshit, but I think could be very, very funny in that.
I forgot about Wendy Chu.
I know it's a bummer because she's injured right now, but she was doing such great work.
And just so I'm not a complete moron, she was the one that wore the pajamas and would always be sleeping in random spots in the back, right?
Yeah, and what was amazing about her was she was like a 5,000-year-old dragon lady before that.
Yeah.
She was, it was nuts. Like her range is so good and she's fantastic in the ring. Like I never understood. I think her like slippers were oftentimes covers to wrestling boots, but like the fact that she could wrestle at the caliber she was in and that gear was insane. But I just think the world of her. I hope she's able to come back soon because she's also just great in the ring.
Yeah.
So she's a huge asset and makes everybody look really good in the process.
So Wendy Chu, if I'm remembering NXT correctly, and I think that I am, she was like worshiping like this god, and didn't she have like a male counterpart? Is that Boa guy?
Yes.
It was Boa. Okay. Is he still with NXT?
He has not been on screen in quite a while.
Okay.
But I don't know if he got released. I don't think so.
I'm not sure. I wonder if he was in like a rando battle royal or something one time. But anyway, I digress. So I do want to hit you back on NXT because they had the pay-per-view last week and they followed it up this week. But if we don't get to it, we don't get to it. I do want to talk about something else that happened on AEW, and Statman Jones put it in the notes, and that was RVD.
Yeah.
Coming back. Thoughts on RVD making a little cameo in a one-off match here?
So I feel like Dynamite 200 I thought was pretty good. We had 3 guys who were over 50 on the show, and RVD is still definitely probably the one that can compete probably at a higher level than Jericho at this point.
My dad did that kick that Jungle Boy ducked.
Yeah, he didn't look the best. I always struggle from the fact that I started watching in 2009. So like these nostalgia pops don't do a ton for me.
Right.
It makes total sense for the FTW belts as a one-off. Like I can't say it's a bad wrestling idea. I just don't care. And when there are like people that, and I also think it'll be something that's really good for Jungle Boy. Like he needs kind of some elevation in that regard.
Dark elevation?
He needs some AEW dark elevation with the FTW title. Like I can't argue that it makes wrestling sense, but I'm like, I'd rather see so many other people that are on the roster. So
I love how and this is what I love about this podcast is that one thought triggers another thought, and then another thought triggers another thought.
Always.
And which brings me to Jack Perry, Jungle Boy. To me, he had a really cool character as Jungle Boy Jack Perry. And now to me, he's just and again, it's still early in his run, so maybe we'll see. But now he's just like Joe Leatherpants heel. What's his character? Who is he supposed to be? Just a douche? They got plenty of douches.
Yeah, I think Hollywood Jungle Boy a little bit. I don't hate it. It is early. I'm trying to give some patience with it, and I do think things had gotten very, very stale. I think he needed something fresh and new. I think it made sense coming out of the 4 Pillars story and his mounting frustrations and not being able to get wins. So I like where it came from a wrestling perspective, but he like there's a reason some of his most successful stuff was under Christian's wing. Like he's just not the strongest talker in the world. Yeah. But it's also some people like really, really hate on his stuff. And I'm like, I don't think he's the worst. I just think it's just not like, it's all very kind of textbook right now. Like there's nothing unique to him about it. It's all like heel stuff that we've seen that we've already kind of seen before. So I'm with you in that, and that it's a little bit kind of like redundant heelish, but I also think can he give them a second before everybody shits on this guy so much? Like it's, he's just kind of finding his way with it right now. So, but I think RVD is probably a good program for that. Like I think it makes wrestling sense, even though it's not necessarily for me.
It's a name for Jungle Boy to beat without necessarily taking anything away from someone on your main roster who you don't necessarily need to do it.
And it's the FTW belt, right? So it's I think
so. God, that just brings me back to that Real World Championship. Like the FTW belt, I could almost kind of give a pass to for some reason, because they've actually at least like made it a thing for a while. And maybe this one, maybe it'll be the same thing with this Real World Championship. I just don't know, man. Like, I don't know. All right, so we got some injury news here on Bryan Danielson, Thunder Rosa, and Jamie Hayter. Tony Khan says that he expects Bryan Danielson to be back sooner than later, as opposed to Jamie Hayter, who they're not quite sure about. Maybe February-ish. And of course, Thunder Rosa. What does it say about Thunder Rosa? Not inspected back in time for All In. Who do you think has the most to gain from once they come back from injury here out of these three names? Bryan Danielson, Thunder Rosa, Jamie Hayter.
Gosh. I think there's a lot. I think there's a lot of intrigue in what happens when Thunder Rosa comes back. It's kind of hard to sit here and say that Bryan Danielson isn't the one with the most to gain from that, because I don't know if there's anybody else in the world that would have the most to gain from coming back. Like he's done like 3 Iron Man matches and they've all been incredible. He had this incredible match with MJF. He fought Okada, right? Like I feel like it's so rare that we get to recognize that someone's a legend while they're actively wrestling. And I feel like he's at that point. And I think it's really, really cool that no matter what that guy does, you just know it's going to be special. And I'm really looking forward to him getting back. I'm so bummed he's not going to be ready for Wembley. But his return, I think with everything that's going on with Blackpool Combat Club, there's so much intrigue to see what happens when he re-enters the picture. So
yeah, and I couldn't agree more with that. And it looks like they're keeping Bullet. See, that's what's so the Bullet. The bullet pool. The bullet with the bullet pool is
Zack Sabre Jr. calls it the Blackpool Country Club, so that's what it is in my head right now.
It's they've done a great job when they've separated them. They've done a good job of making sure they all had something to do, and so even if one is out, they can always just like kind of like reform and just go back to being that cohesive unit that they always will. I just want to say, I'm going to get my flowers too here.
Oh,
SJ, you're doing an amazing job hosting, KJG. Well, thank you, SJ. I appreciate that very, very much. So yeah, Bryan Danielson, I think so. You know, like how to make a baseball analogy, and what's more of a sports, but it's used a lot in baseball, especially with our team, the New York Yankees. Whenever someone gets hurt, which is inevitable, Aaron Judge, Giancarlo Stanton, Anthony Rizzo, all these guys, they get hurt. Then it's like, oh, what is it? Next man up.
Yep.
Next man up. And I feel like despite how you've had your issues with how the women have been booked, I will give Tony Khan and AEW credit. Whenever someone like a Thunder Rosa goes out, or someone like a Britt Baker goes out, or someone like a Jamie Hayter goes out, they always seem to have the next woman up.
Yeah.
And they find a good way, whether it's Tony Storm, whether it's Ruby Riott, whether it's Willow Nightingale, Chris Statlander. They always seem to have someone there ready and willing, and do a great job running with the ball that was left for them.
And let's give Tony Storm credit, because twice it's been her, right? Like it was her when Rosa went down, and it was her again when Jamie Hayter went down. And I think that speaks a lot to how she's perceived, because I think she's a very reliable in-ring worker. I'm a big fan of her in-ring work, and I think character-wise, she's very fluidly able to make adjustments that allow her to be trusted in that position. Like I really think it goes a long way to speak to her value. But it also is a testament to how much they have built out this division. I still have qualms with the booking, but they added Athena, they added Willow, they added Tony, they added Saraya as a presence. Like they've really gone out of their way to sign a lot of the right pieces, even if I have issues with how those pieces kind of fit in. Mercedes Martinez, we just saw, like she's phenomenal. I can't wait to see what happens. I'm loving this Athena title reign. When she gets let loose on AEW television proper, I think it's going to be a sight to see. Like it's maybe my favorite title reign in wrestling right now.
There you go. So that is just a little observation that I noted about AEW and how it's not all doom and gloom. There is some good things going on with that women's division. Kate, smart me up on some ROH.
What's you mentioned that this show was probably one of the best shows that they've done in a while. Chat me up about a little ROH. Is the show, just because I'm looking down the notes and I see how many matches there are.
Yeah. Does
the show run that way? Like, does it run the way I read it? Is it like, oh my God, I have to watch all these matches? Or are the matches good enough and strong enough and maybe not long enough where like it flows like kind of like a nice little show, like a nice watch?
So that's what felt like they turned the corner this past week on. When they have had a plan in place, because ROH has always been so ring heavy. And a lot of the storytelling is driven by the in-ring, which is why I've loved it as a brand so much. It started to feel like AEW Dark for like the past 6 weeks to 2 months. We got to the point where it was the week before the pay-per-view and there were no matches announced. Like it was just a collection of matches. This week, we started to see some carryover from Death Before Dishonor. We started to see things making sense again. Josh Woods being in the pure division making sense. Like there was a lot of renewed blood there. And some of it is literally just clarity around who's in ROH, what division are they in, and are the champions around to defend their titles. Aussie Open working Dynamite and then turning around and working ROH, I think went a long way to make you feel like ROH's champions feel important to their programs, because the Lucha Brothers defended the ROH tag titles on Dynamite twice, literally never in ROH the entire time they were tag champions. Samoa Joe's been there probably the most consistent of the champions. The 6-man belts have been erratic at best. Claudio, I think they got screwed over on Eddie being injured, and then now Eddie in the G1. I think there were probably plans around that, but Claudio hasn't been around. So it's kind of, I think for ROH fans, it's particularly frustrating because they went from being the most logical wrestling brand in the world to the one with just no care around it and people just popping up and showing up whenever they felt like. And on top of that, you got to pay $10 a month to watch this stuff. So like, that's a big piece of it is like, why am I paying $10 a month now to go watch AEW Dark when it's the most expensive brand on television and the least cared about? But it really, really feels like this past week was really refreshing, and that it felt like a much stronger episode, and also a little maddening because I was like, it's such simple changes. You were able to fix it in like a week. So like, please sustain that moving over because it's very easy. But they've also done a lot, right? Like they're now touring with Collision, and before they were a studio show, and who's available in the back changes every Saturday, I'm sure, because a lot of these guys are working indies. Like, so there's a lot of factors to balance, and that's never lost on me. But it is, they are such clean and simple changes to make that it run because the caliber is so high of the talent that they have there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm again like there's so much wrestling to watch. Like there's like not enough time to get in the week. So God bless you for getting that in. One show that I do watch a lot of is Impact Wrestling.
Yeah,
big Impact Wrestling. They are firing on all cylinders with two big shows.
Well,
there you go. Coming up in Emergence, and of course the combo with New Japan, the Battle of the Multiverse, or whatever it's called, multiverse of multi-talented,
forbidden melted door,
forbidden bullet pool combat country.
So Zack Sabre Jr. will be on the show. He'll be teaming with his stablemate Shane Haste against Moose and Eddie Edwards. Kind of a little taken aback to see that. I know they're both heels now, but holy crap, talk about like the craziest feud in recent Impact history. This will be the first appearance of Zack Sabre Jr. in an Impact ring, while Haste will make his first appearance since a short run this past February and March. So, I mean, you got some matches here set up for that. Alex Shelley, Tanahashi.
Yeah.
Leo
also,
Rush and
Zack Sabre Jr. will be like one of the few active WWE wrestles WWE, AEW, Impact, New Japan, and ROH. He'll be like one of the 5-timers there.
Who's that? Alex Shelley?
Maybe him too. But Zack Sabre Jr.
He had a match in NXT with Kushida.
Yes, then I guess he would. Well, Alex Shelley,
he
Motor City Machine Guns did.
They did the 6-man with Joe, right?
Yeah, so there you go. That's fun. So
there's that.
That's just fun.
And then you got Leo Rush and Trey Miguel versus Hiromu Takahashi and Mike Bailey. I wonder, like, so I wonder, like, and maybe someone in the chat can smart me up. Are they like literally just throwing darts on the wall, like, to see who's going to team up with who, or is there some story on another program that I'm not following here? Because
no, I think Multiverse is almost supposed to be that, of just like a dream match that, like,
because like Zachary Wentz is back and Leo Rush is teaming with Trey Miguel.
Yeah.
So like,
I don't know if there's like an eliminator thing or whatever going on, but
there is an eliminator tag team thing for Impact for number one contenders for the tag team title.
Oh, Tony's not here to talk about a tournament. He's gonna be so sad.
Oh, Tony, and it's an eliminator tournament. Tony,
it's an eliminator. Yeah,
that's right. So we had the Rascals. They beat what is it? Degresham.
Oh, I was saying that referees use their Jonathan Discretion
and Mike Bailey. They lost to the Rascals. So the Rascals await the winners of ABC. That is another branch of the Bullet Club, as they take on Rich Swann, and Sami Callihan this Thursday. And
Kalisto will be making his Impact debut, Samurai del Sol.
Very cool.
Next week. So that's dope. And then of course you have Emergence, which is shaping up. You know,
I was wondering because like Nick Aldis, he was so quick in and out of Impact. I was like, wait, so you're gonna have a one and done on Impact, and Eric Young's gonna beat Nick Aldis?
And he wasn't even killed off, was he?
No,
he wasn't even murdered. Is he really gone? Yeah.
So
I'm like, well, where are they gonna go now? And of course now they're revamping the Diener Eric Young storyline. So
Very
cool. What's gonna main event? Because the World Championship isn't even on the line. So like, what's gonna main event? I'm like, oh wait, Trinity Deonna Purrazzo.
Hell yeah.
So that's gonna be your main event. I'm assuming at Emergence.
So lots of good stuff happening in wrestling. Some not so great stuff. Some people unhappy. Wardlow seems to be a little down in the dumps. Did you read this?
Yeah, I did, and I get it, man. Like, he was the hottest babyface in the world there, and just nowhere to be found.
Yeah, it's a little perplexing, and I noticed this a while ago. So like you said, like I think you mentioned it earlier. Like once you lose something, it's very tough to get it back. And like we said that with Cody and Roman, and how like, is the story still even there anymore? Like, is there enough good creative in the world to get it back? I think there is. You don't necessarily do. Not saying that it's impossible either way. But is there a world, Wardlow's world, where you think that Wardlow can get back? Does absence make the heart grow fonder in the case like Wardlow?
I mean, the tough thing is right now you have this absolute gold with MJF and Adam Cole, and I feel like the best way to get Wardlow back is to revisit that story. Like it's so right there, and I don't think that means it's any less valuable in like 3 months. But you have the plane situation, you have their kayfabe situation as well. Like there's so much gold to be had there, but you also have to make him feel credible going into that. And the way that they've treated the TNT title has just not been good. I'm loving what they're doing with Christian, right, but the way that they were hot potatoing it before was just so, it didn't have any value to it. So I feel for Wardlow. Like I think they did it with Hook too, where it was like you had this white hot baby face and then just kind of disappeared. So
there are two things I would like to see happen with Wardlow if you're not going to get him back to the level that everyone once thought he was going to be. So they just turned Will Hobbs babyface again, which I had been preaching that they should have done a long time ago, but I wanted it to be back with Ricky Starks. I wanted them to be like back together, like reunited, and it feels so good, sort of deal. That's not happening. Yeah, that's not happening. Now you have this team, which I don't know what Tony Khan's thinking putting these two guys together, other than they're big dudes. Big Bill and Brian Cage, the Machine. And I guess Big Bill is no longer with Stokely. I guess he's part of the Mogul Embassy. I don't know if they ever.
Well, the firm broke up a few months ago. Yeah, they dissolved all of the firm.
Oh, they did.
Yeah, after that, they had that cinematic match on Rampage. It was kind of like that was the end of the firm.
Oh yeah.
They had Big Bill tagging with Lee Moriarty. They got paired together. Like it's kind of funny because I feel like the biggest criticism of Tony Khan is like he doesn't strike while the iron's hot, and now he kind of is doing it here, and I don't hate it. Like everybody just thought Brian Cage and Big Bill were really fun together, like, and that their dual finisher was super fun, and they just kind of caught fire. And I don't hate the idea of Big Bill being like a part of the Mogul Embassy and just an enforcer role. Like I think you could do some really cool stuff with that, especially the way Swerve has been acting. My God.
Yeah.
Like there's some good stuff to be had there. So I don't hate that.
And then to their credit on Rampage, again, not a lot of people watch Rampage, but I checked it out this week. And it looks like they're finally, because let's be honest, since Brian Cage, since day one-ish, pretty sure.
He was a blackjack battle royal, whatever the fuck you think. Yeah.
Yeah. So if he's not day one-ish, he's like day 1 3/4-ish.
Yeah.
But for the first time I can remember, like the guy cut a promo on Rampage, like they gave him mic time. I'm like, oh, and he was funny.
Yeah, so, I think he this is the most on a track he's felt in a really long time.
And so going back to my Wardlow thing, if you want to strap the proverbial rocket as much as you can, because AEW is super loaded, to Big Bill and Brian Cage, maybe I would love to see Wardlow and Will Hobbs as a tag team.
Okay.
And just make like a Twin Towers, like, you know, Road Warriors, like two badass motherfuckers coming in and totally just having them fight these four big giants, just have a series of matches. I mean, they might not be, you know, poetic masterpieces, whatever, but just hard hitting, beat your ass back and forth, and then have Wardlow and Will Hobbs maybe go for the tag titles or something, and then maybe have them split up and reignite their, like, just, you know, completely off the cuff booking.
No, I like that. They can be on the same side of things. I feel like I agree with you about Hobbs. Like, they have the whole Book of Hobbs thing, and then the QTV stuff. And I actually like QTV a lot. Hobbs was not the guy for it at all. Okay. Like, John Morrison, perfect guy for that.
I agree. And then they just, that's another thing, man. And then just bring John Morrison in like he's just another guy. I mean, he might be at this point in his career.
I was going to say, I think he might be just another guy. Like, he might be in that Matt Sydal role where you're just like, man, he's really good. It makes everybody else look really great in the process. Yeah. Like, I think that might be where he's at.
Probably. And I guess because he just doesn't look like he ever ages. So,
yeah, it's like, crazy.
Part of me, like, when he came back to WWE with, like, I'm like, oh, John Morrison, they're actually going to do something with him. Royal Rumble, he's out third, and then he's out third. Like,
go trade Bad Bunny, and
then they put him back with the Miz, which I love because they're awesome together. And Miz is now in that part of his career too.
Yeah, I think so too.
So, as clearly we can see. All right, Kate. I want to play a little game with you that I just made up.
Yeah, let's do it.
And we talked about a lot of this stuff, but I don't want to talk about how it was booked. I don't want to talk about, you know, this is no indictment on the characters. This is no indictment on what the storyline is. This is just about how it made you feel in the moment. And this is a game I like to call glad, mad, or sad, ... or indifferent. So I'm gonna pick out some moments at random
this is
here.
Just feelings
that happened this past week in wrestling, and maybe a little longer. You know, my timeline might not be there.
No, but I like this. It's not analysis.
It's not analysis, just how it made you feel.
It's just my feelings.
Just your feeling. And if you want to give like a quick one-line synopsis of why you feel that way, that's fine.
It's very therapeutic.
So, and this is all wrestling related, and it's pretty much all AEW and WWE.
Okay.
Just because I'm pretty sure I'm standard and pretty positive in stating that that's what we both guaranteed watched. So first thing I'm going to hit you with is a match from SummerSlam. We touched on it earlier. How did Logan Paul and Ricochet make you feel? Glad, mad, or sad, or indifferent?
Indifferent.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I did not expect that. I wanted to start off hot. I thought that was going to be for sure glad.
The Ricochet being in that spot made me glad. That part of it, I was glad that he got to have a match that they viewed as important. But I knew Logan Paul was going to win, and I honestly felt like it didn't get into the gear that I thought it was going to. Like I felt with these two, the whole thing was going to be built around like insane athleticism, and they had that crazy spot in Rumble where they collided in the air, and like all the stuff that I actually don't love, all the like go virally stuff. I didn't feel like we got really a ton of those spots. This just kind of didn't get to where I thought it was going. So I'm going indifferent.
The hype train was too much for what they delivered, and they delivered. Don't get me wrong, they delivered, but I think it was just the hype train was too much. So that makes KTG indifferent.
It does.
I'm gonna go. I think I'm gonna start off a little positive. I think that makes me glad.
Okay.
I think it does. And this is the one that I wanted to have back in my picks. We always have one that we want back, and this is the one that I want. I wanted to pick Logan Paul, but then I'm like, when is he going to be back again? WrestleMania, Survivor. Sure. So, one Ricochet that made me glad. Let me hit you with. I'm going to do maybe 2 or 3 AE dubs in a row here.
Sure.
Trent Beretta in the 3-way match on Dynamite, he got the dub. And it seems like there seems to be a little bit of a resurgence, not only behind Orange Cat, not that there ever wasn't a resurgence behind Orange Cassidy, but it looks like they're putting a little bit of the proverbial, hey, go get them, guys, to Chucky T and Trent Beretta, the best friends. So glad, mad, or sad, Trent Beretta and best friends.
Extremely glad. Extremely glad. I feel like Trent is very underrated in the ring, and I feel like best friends have been an extremely consistent tag team and have had no real creative direction for a while. Like them and Dark Order have felt very lost in the shuffle to me. So to see them having a little bit of wind in their sails, especially with the champion Orange Cassidy at the front of the line, I feel like there's some really fun stuff that you can do on that. I was very glad about that one.
I'm going to go with you too. I'm going back-to-back glads on that one. All right, sticking with AE dub. The segment, the contract signing between MJF and Adam Cole. That segment, glad, mad, or sad, or indifferent?
Ooh, just the contract signing part.
Just the concept of, were you expecting MJF to have like a shady contract where it says, no, now you don't get a shot at all, or something like that? Or like, how did you feel after like they actually hugged it out, their joint music played, and it seems to be an official MJF is giving Adam Cole a legit title shot? Glad, mad, or sad, or indifferent, or not ready to believe yet? How about that?
I was gonna say I'm more like curious.
Yeah.
I probably would go in the glad category because I'm very happy that like MJF, Adam Cole at Wembley that's awesome. Like the fact that that's happening at Wembley Stadium makes me really glad. And I think with Roddy being in the picture and Kyle O'Reilly being unknown, like there's so many places that you can go story-wise. I think they've done such a good job of building out a few aspects of this. I know this is supposed to be for feelings, but I'm telling you why I'm glad.
No,
this wrestling makes me glad.
I made this game up 2 hours ago. You can do whatever you want.
Okay, beautiful. It makes me glad that when we saw MJF and Adam Cole lose to FTR, MJF lost in the way that was exactly what he was warning Jungle Boy about in the Four Pillars feud. Like he was saying that like you'll save everybody else before you'll prioritize winning, and like he chose to save Adam Cole over winning the tag titles, and he immediately kind of realized that about himself. The beginning of this whole feud started with Adam Cole consistently outsmarting MJF, so I feel like they've done a really good job of anything being a possibility here, of either MJF having the shady contract, of Adam Cole being the one to turn and betray Max so that he's left once again having searched for something but not being able to like hold on to it. I am very glad about how well this angle has been built out, and I think it's been the most creatively consistent thing in MJF's title reign that people have latched onto. And I loved the Danielson match, and I really liked a lot of what he's brought to the table, but I feel like from week to week, this has been the strongest stuff that MJF's had to do as champion. So it makes me glad.
I'm with you. I am also glad on this. All right. So here we go. Glad, mad, or sad, or indifferent. Shayna Baszler, Ronda Rousey, SummerSlam. The entire kit and caboodle.
Glad. I think Shayna being the face in this means we might get Shayna Baszler versus Rhea Ripley after this, which I think would just be fucking awesome. I'm glad that Ronda Rousey put Shayna over on her way out, and I'm glad that they let that happen because even if Ronda Rousey's reign hasn't been for you, she's a big deal to them, and the fact that they let Shayna Baszler and Ronda Rousey happen, I think, is indicative of good things to come for Shayna Baszler. I think she's one of the best women's talents that they have there. And if this means a face Shayna Baszler moves on to Rhea Ripley, very, very glad. And I thought the promos on Monday were awesome. So I'm glad about it all.
All right. So I had this down because my initial part of this game was going to be positive and negative takeaways from the last week in wrestling.
Okay.
So this was under my negative list.
Okay.
So I was mad. I was so mad about this match because I didn't know anything about the MMA situation. But you convinced me to upgrade from mad to indifferent.
Okay.
I forgot about the promos. I think the promos deserve a lot of credit for the build that I still don't even know happened. That was an MMA match. I think Ronda really got the raw end of the stick here. I think that she didn't have a lot of great outings as of late, but I think that I don't think her great outings that she has had should be overshadowed by it. But this match to me, like we talked about Becky and Trish, like I get it. You have to have Ronda on the show. I get that. But to me, this was just not there for me. I didn't skip it. I didn't fast forward through it, but I really, really wanted to.
If you had said just the match, I probably would have said indifferent. But when you said whole kit and caboodle, I'm glad
upgrading.
I get you.
I'm upgrading from mad to indifferent. I had a couple more, and I know you did want to mention some stuff about the G1. So a couple more. Let's go back to. See, I don't want to do Rampage because I think we. All right, so the backlot brawl between we already talked about best friends. We don't need to go back there. All right, how about this? We mentioned Chris Statlander before, and we mentioned Mercedes Martinez before. And now it looks like we're going to have some sort of program that involves all four ladies with Willow Nightingale, Chris Statlander. Now, Diamante has now formed some sort of alliance with Mercedes Martinez. I don't know a whole lot about the history there. I'm sure there is some. But
so what was cool was, I'll just throw this in there because we talked about ROH. On ROH, Diamante lost to Athena, but gave her a hell of a run for her money. And Athena said on ROH, like, you have what it takes to be champion. You just have to find that missing piece. And so I thought it was really nice that they actually carried that over into Collision. And I think that's an awesome idea to have Mercedes.
So is Mercedes Martinez the missing piece? Is that the quote unquote missing piece? Or was just the missing piece just like what do they say that? An intangible?
I think that's what they're going to tell us a little bit. Like, to me, it seemed like a character thing, but Mercedes is also the one that Athena beat for the title. So I think there's a lot of really interesting storytelling possibilities there.
Okay. So like I said, this was on my positive thing. So I just want to let you know, I want to ask you, the Statlander, Willow, Diamante, Mercedes, glad, sad, mad, or indifferent?
Very glad. Huge fan of all four of them, and happy to see people outside of the championship wheel getting time for the women's division. Very, very glad.
All right. I'm going to do three more real quick. I'll start out. We talked about this ad nauseum, but I just want to get your glad, sad, mad, or indifferent. I think I know the answer, but I need to hear it from you. I need to hear it in one of these four words. So glad, mad, or sad, or indifferent. What we know about All Out in Wembley right now.
It's like between indifferent and glad. I'm always glad when a wrestling event sells 85,000 tickets almost, right? Like, that's incredible. And there's a lot of I want to see FTR and the Bucks, and I want to see Joe and Punk. I need to see how the rest of this card shakes out. So they're trending glad, but it was indifferent before Collision, I would say.
All right, last two before we hit the G1. These are both WWE. I think I know how you feel about this too, but I want to hear. I need to hear it in the words. So glad, sad, mad, or indifferent. Cody Brock.
Indifferent.
That was so like that laugh was so mad. that under your breath laugh was so mad.
Indifferent. I can't have an intense emotional reaction to something I still don't know why it happened.
All right, we'll leave it at that.
Beautiful.
I loved it. I'm a sucker for a good handshake, just as I am a sucker for a good bench clearing brawl.
Sure.
So I'm glad. I love Cody. I can't wait to see what happens with him on Raw tonight if we didn't already miss it. All right, so last one, also SummerSlam, but also you can include SmackDown on this and just his rise in general. Glad, sad, mad, or indifferent. LA Knight.
Glad about the guy, mad about the booking. I'm glad he won this battle royal. I feel like they missed two really big opportunities to make him the US champion or the Money in the Bank holder. So mad about the booking, but very, very, very glad about the guy. I couldn't believe when we were at Collision Live, people were doing yes chants or yeah. And wearing his shirt. Like, I thought that was awesome that we were getting that at Collision, like the smarkiest of smart brands. So very, very glad about him catching fire and so organically. Hope that they fix the booking so that I don't have to be mad about it.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was glad, mad, or sad, ... or indifferent. Leave the feedback on the Twitter.
On the Twitter.
On the Twitter. This is what doing a show sober does for me. Good, bad, indifferent. Glad, mad, sad, or indifferent. That's right. That's what this is. Yeah, so leave the feedback on it, what you thought in the chat or on, I'm sure in the Discord, leave it in the Discord. I'm sure you guys are all up in that bitch. All right, so that was glad, sad, mad, or indifferent. Let me take this banner off, and then we're going to go into KTG. I know you wanted to touch on some notes on the G1, so I will give you the floor before we pull this train into the old station.
Oh, and I don't need to go in depth. I'm just
Yeah, for sure. I didn't mean to set you up like that.
No. A couple things. One, I feel like Gabriel Kidd's been like the standout of the entire G1, and it just cracks me up because I remember like, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago, kind of when I first started to know you guys, you were just like really in on Gabriel Kidd.
Oh yeah.
And he wasn't even really doing anything yet. You were like, I like this guy. Like, I'm a Gabriel Kidd guy. And at that point, like, there weren't like a lot of Gabriel Kidd guys around. But from the moment that they did those pressers beforehand through now, like he's had, this is what I feel like Tony loves so much about tournaments. Now, what a well-booked tournament can give you is like, it's not always the guy that wins with these things, right? Like Gabriel Kidd has had such a standout run. They've set up some really cool stuff with him and Despy. And it just cracked me up because anytime I think of Gabriel Kidd, I think of you, like, because you were just like, I like this guy, and like he wasn't doing anything yet, but now this whole reinvigorated Bullet Club stuff has been great. The War Dogs going around have been fantastic. And then just in the finals that we're getting to and stuff, ELP and Will Ospreay had just a fuck of a match, man. This Ospreay stuff, like he is just proves everybody right every time they go out, and I was like, this guy's the best in the world right now. Like he's just been fantastic. Love ZSJ and Naito continuing their history through this. But just really, really a really like refreshed New Japan product right now. Like they're in star making mode with this younger crop that's coming through, and it's been really fun after they got kind of stalled out by the pandemic and like they've had a change in leadership. Like it feels like a really, really reinvigorated product right now, and it's cool to see.
Yeah, and like we talked about the Impact stuff, Sonata will actually be at Emergence, so they're really firing on all cylinders. New Japan. Be sure to listen to the Bread Club where Matt and Kieran Thompson of Kieran and Kel talk all about
that's right
about New Japan Pro Wrestling, part of the Shining Wizards Network. Follow all the shows on the Shining Wizards Network. Kate, this was a blast, man. Short and sweet, to the point. You know, I think we covered everything. I hope we did.
Kevin, it was a whirlwind of emotions. We were glad, we were mad, we were indifferent. We were all over the place today.
That was what we call a roller coaster.
That's right.
That is a roller coaster. All right, guys, you can follow KTG, Kate the Great, at Miss Kate Fabe on Twitter, at Kate's the Grams on IG. Of course, like I said earlier, countless times you can never plug it enough, the Mark Order podcast right here on the Shining Wizards Network. Wednesdays, immediately following Dynamite, and occasionally when there's other stuff going on, a pay-per-view or maybe some other things going on, you can always find them, follow them on the Twitter. You can find her on Fightful Select on these post shows, SmackDown, ROH, Sour Graps. And of course, if you're in New York, not in the 5 boroughs, she'll be up there doing some commentary for Excite Wrestling. And of course, the most important credit, dear, good, close, personal friend of the Shining Wizards. And of course, follow me at...
Oh yeah, you muted yourself.
Oh, is that what happens when you play the music? It mutes yourself?
I don't know. You went quiet there for a second.
Yeah, I guess it does.
Back.
I guess because it's not going through the soundboard. That's probably what it is. Hey, I think for basically one of my first times doing this, not too bad.
Not bad. We had a lot of fun tonight. And all we can say is good night, Gracie, you know?
Good night, Gracie. Then we get this up there.
Good night.
That out there.
Diana.
Good night, everybody. Everybody, good night. Let's go this. Let's play this music again. Let's do that. Sorry, guys. Here we go. And let's all fart around.